Hi guys, it's Marc Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi, and I'm here with Elaine, and we're doing this live simulcast with our roundtable, in which we advise writers, directors, actors, producers, etc. And we also answer questions aimed at Mr. Sci-Fi. So here we are. So then it says join with video, and you click that, and we will be getting on the road. Join with computer audio. It says on the other
Adam,
computer.
Where are
there.
You?
Yikes! Loud.
I'm up at the North Pole. I don't.
Yeah,
I know,
Jesus Christ.
So much there. Out there.
Yeah, Merry Thanksgiving. Merry November. So, hi guys. So good to see all of you and all of your gorgeousness. Is anyone on, like, not in Los Angeles, but more like on the East Coast or anywhere, London, anywhere like that? Nope.
Or needs to leave early.
Early.
Needs to leave early.
No.
Okay, good.
Okay, great. So
I'm in the Bay Area.
You're in the Bay Area. Okay, well that's closer to the sun. So or closer to the North Pole at least. So well, why don't you start, Nazim, and to introduce yourself and tell us what you need and what you're up to and all of that.
Okay, my name is Nazim El Masri. I'm an actor, writer, producer, whatever.
Great.
I was in LA 42 years living there. Grew up around the business, basically. Also worked in the business and both theater and film, and also became a public access television producer when I went to Hawaii. But now I'm focusing on producing my screenplay,
Great,
which is based on a novel that I've written.
Oh, good.
So I'm looking for everybody. I'm looking for writers, producers, actors, everybody.
Yes.
I don't have a budget for it yet.
Okay.
I'm just trying to see how that would work.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly now I'm trying to perfect the screenplay.
Yes.
I'm done with the first draft of the screenplay. I'm on my second rewrite, and we'll see where that goes.
Great. And what's the genre?
The genre is fantasy adventure.
Okay.
Think of Lord of the Rings kind of thing.
Okay, so it's going to cost like, $1 gazillion. Okay.
Is it would you say it could be done on a
small budget or a large budget?
Are you picturing a very large budget? How are you picturing it?
I want to start out as animation.
Ah, that's interesting. Okay.
A mixture of animation, live action, with the use of a lot of CGI, special effects, that kind of thing.
Sure. So you just want like all the grief of everything. Okay. So, okay, here's several things. Now, have you finished the novel? Is it completed?
The novel is actually, to be real honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm kind of finished with the novel. The thing is, I got stuck on the ending.
Ah.
So I decided to stop on that and start working on the screenplay.
Okay, but you haven't written the screenplay yet, correct?
I have written the whole screenplay, the first draft, and I'm on my second draft right now.
Did you find an ending that satisfied you?
Not quite. I'm still playing with endings.
Yes. Okay. Because the reason I was asking the question was because if you had finished the novel, you could submit the novel to publishers, and if they published it, that could give you credibility, and that can help a lot. There's Elena and I wrote a pilot called Magic Time that I then sold as a trilogy of novels to HarperCollins and hit the bestseller list and so forth, and that hasn't hurt.
In creating your story, have you shared it with anyone? Have you talked it through to anyone?
No, but I tell you what, in my marketing teacher who referred me to you guys,
sure.
He is also a publisher, Mr. Bill Weber.
Oh,
I don't know if you heard of him.
Sure.
You can just Google him.
Yeah.
And today I emailed him the synopsis of the screenplay, which I took off of that novel, and the novel itself. And because he's a publisher, and he said he's going to read it and get back to me.
Great. That's great. That's great.
Sometimes if we're having trouble, though, working out an ending that's really satisfying, it's good to just share it with a friend who kind of likes the same stuff that you like, shares your aesthetic. Just like go out to lunch and tell them the story and tell them why you wrote the story. And often in conversations, it with one other person, when you're having to explain things and they're asking questions and they're responding to certain things, you're getting confused by certain things. It starts to clarify in our own minds, where we can sometimes be a little rat in a cage when we've been with it too long, and we're just like going round and round and we're not finding our way out. And sometimes in just sharing it with other people and people asking questions and you're remembering why you got into this story in the first place, sometimes it gets clear really fast, just over a lunch.
Yes. Also, here's a couple things. In terms of getting notes on a script, if there are writers who've written movies that you love, most of them are pretty accessible, those writers. And if you offer them $1,000 to read the script and give you notes, it's a very good idea. No one ever offers them money. And so if one of them reads it, first of all, you can be sure that their notes will be solid. And secondly, if they like it, they could be very useful in opening doors. So that's one thing. Because that's something no one ever does. The other thing is, whenever you're trying to find a solution, and this can be any part in the writing or anything, instead of trying to come up with the one answer, the right answer, you simply write down like 1 through 25 or 1 through 50 or 1 through 100 on lined paper, and you say, okay, without censoring myself, what's every possible solution I can think of? And you just start writing down anything, and it doesn't have to make sense. It can be like they rob a bank, or it can be, angels descend from heaven. And what you'll find out is, if you come up with 25 or 50 or 100 of these, there'll be several that are great that you wouldn't have thought of if you were just trying to come up with one answer. And so that kind of gets the juices flowing, and so that's not a bad idea either. So okay.
That is wonderful. And by the way, this is where Mr. Phillips comes in. I'm going to have lunch with him. He lives about an hour north of me.
Oh, great.
And I can get together with him, and we're going to talk about the script.
That's great. That's great. That's great.
Great.
And also the other part is, just remember that it's about perseverance and the willingness to keep working on the material, keep moving forward. That's really what gets things to happen.
And the one thing that you might start doing when you're not writing,
yes,
is sometimes we work to finish what we're doing, and then we say, well, what now? And we sort of like lose energy, right? But if now, before you finish it, you start looking at companies and producers who have done these kinds of combos,
That's my assignment.
Yes.
To my marketing teacher for next week.
That's
I got to look up 10 possible producers, whatever, developers.
Yes.
And then not only that, I got to look up all that are possible just to get an idea.
Great.
That's great.
That's great.
Because if you have targets, once you finish, it really helps you finish, and it really helps you get over the final polish.
Yeah.
And so knowing that, once you're done, you're usually kind of wrung out and tired.
Yes.
But the excitement of saying, well, here's like 5 of my favorite places, and I think they share my sensibility, it really helps keep the energy and the focus up.
Yeah. Yeah. So great. So anything else?
Yes. Thank you, guys. You're very helpful.
Yay. 3 cheers. So Adam, is there a Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Not only is there a Mr.
Yay.
Sci-Fi question, there is a Mr. Sci-Fi super chat.
Yay! Ding, 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 ding.
For any new people watching on Mr. Sci-Fi channel, super chat is a way to get your question or comment to the top of the line and help us out a little bit. So this question is from Gregory Krug. And he asks, any thoughts on the death of Vic Morrow during the Twilight Zone movie?
Okay.
Sure. Well, it's a terrible tragedy, and no movie is worth anybody's life, period. Particularly because 2 kids were killed in that. And for those who don't know, they did a Twilight Zone film some years ago, and it was an anthology film, and John Landis's sequence took place in, among other places, Vietnam. And there was a sequence in a Vietnamese village at night where it was supposed to be under attack, and there were explosives going off, and there were helicopters and so forth. And one of the explosions hit the helicopter blade, and the helicopter fell, and the rotor's blades killed the 2 children and Vic Morrow. So it was a terrible, terrible tragedy, and it pretty much put an end to.
I just read I just read something about that last night, in fact.
Yes.
Vic Morrow actually was hesitant about doing that shot.
Well, yeah. Who wouldn't
And
be?
he said, actually, his last line was, I don't think I should be doing this shot.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
And then he went in there and did it. And
well,
look
yes.
what happened.
And that teaches us all a lesson, which is if you think something is not right or not kosher, don't do it. You know, I mean, it's better to survive and maybe lose a job than do what you're told to do and you know, have terrible things happen. So just, you know, but of course this was a huge studio movie, and the general assumption would have been that people were taking precautions. So it was a terrible tragedy.
But sometimes it's easy to get lost in what you want to see on the screen.
Yes.
But with Mark and me, it is absolutely safety first. You can get the same effect safely.
Yes.
You just have to think it through a little more.
Yes, yes, yes. And also if you cast identical twins, if something happens to one of them, you just plug the other one in and you're good to go.
No problem.
So no, joking, of course. So okay, great. Well, 3 cheers. So now on my
What is it? What can we do for you?
Wait,
I mean,
no, we already did that, Elaine. So now we move on to Robert Harrington. Hi, Robert. Go for it. How are you doing? Just unmute your mic. There we go.
Just so you know, Paul Dove has joined us.
Oh, hi, Paul.
Get him in after Robert.
Yeah, exactly. That sounds
Paul.
great.
Yes,
so Robert, can you unmute your mic, or are you struggling with that? You can't find the way to do it. Okay, well, if you figure it out at some point, just chime in and we'll give you your turn.
Yeah.
And you can also send questions or chat to Adam, and he can read them aloud as sort of your surrogate voice.
Or
and
he can perhaps guide you through unmuting yourself.
Or you can tell him what you want for Christmas, since he's going to be playing Santa.
Corner.
Yeah, there you go. So so Paul, why don't we go for it? And again, to everyone, remember to mute your mics unless it's your turn or you have something.
Wait,
Robert got it.
Yay,
there you go. There's
Robert,
hope after all.
Yes.
Yeah, you bet. Sure. And then Paul.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's fine.
The screen just had a big unmute button and I pushed it. I don't know what happened.
There's a lesson there.
Well, okay, so I have been for the last year, literally almost every day, continuing to work on one of my scripts as I'm converting it to a full feature-length movie. And I've been basically starting off in the pre-production world, not knowing diddly about what the hell that's all about. And now I think a year later, I know a lot about what it's all about.
Good.
And so as I'm getting close to being finished with what I can do there, now is the time for me to start bringing in maybe cinematographer, maybe a assistant director,
yes,
maybe a line producer, to let's really get this thing tight so that we can get a pretty tight budget and then go into a Kickstarter campaign. That's a fairly aggressive thing. I've already set up a company, an LLC. I call it Island Arc Film. I'm a geologist, and it has something to do with volcanic chains and all that sort of stuff.
Of course.
It's a lot of fun. So I sent out today for the first time, just by coincidence, I didn't think about it, the meeting tonight, but just a letter to everyone in the group here to express what my next steps are. And I think I've already received a whole bunch of very positive, encouraging comments from various people from within the table, and so that's heartening.
Great.
So that's kind of where I am with it. I only have a couple of questions.
Sure, go for it.
One is, if you don't mind, I want to produce a proof of concept short that will go into the Kickstarter campaign.
Sure.
The proof of concept is what throws me a little bit. I don't think I'm supposed to be making a little mini movie or a short movie, but my approach right now is to put together just go and film the cool scenes, the ones that are more challenging.
Yes.
It's a ghost story like with American Graffiti, or it's American Graffiti with a ghost.
Yeah.
Anyway, but there will be scenes where you need to have 2 people in the same place at the same time and all those kinds of shots. So
sure.
I'll spend a week studying how to do that kind of thing, but I really need a cinematographer, a director of photography who's got the experience doing that kind of stuff.
Sure. Well,
that's where I'm going now.
Well, there's a lot of Oh, I'm sorry, Robert.
Launch.
Pardon me. Sorry.
I was hoping for kind of a springtime launch for the primary or principal photography. So.
Sure. There's a lot of members of the table who are DPs, and you can definitely put out the word to them. If anyone who's not on the table email, David Bartlett can help you get on the table email, and then you can send one email out to all several thousand members of the table. And again, because we're in a pandemic, you have to sort of lay out what the plan is. Like, is it COVID? Are you taking all the COVID precautions? Is it SAG signatory? All these questions now. So you just have to let people know how they'll be safe. That's the big one. And but obviously consulting with people and planning things, that can be done via Zoom or whatever.
And you can do a lot of tricks. We did a COVID episode where we
Space Command.
A Space Command.
Yeah.
Where we just had where we wrote everybody monologues and we sent it off and they filmed themselves with their
or sometimes we'd add people together in a scene.
Right. But in one case we had a father and a daughter talking to each other, sitting in one living room, right?
Yes.
No masks. However, the daughter was in Saskatchewan in her living room,
right?
And the father was in Georgia.
Yeah, in Atlanta.
And
we put them together.
He had a green screen.
Yeah.
And we just had our DP, which is the guy you're seeking. We just had our DP explain how to put it together.
Uh-huh.
And they really appeared to be in the same room, even though they weren't in the same country.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah. And so there's a lot. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that's very encouraging. That that's a good way to go. I guess my question is, do I want to just show those highlights and film clips and interesting little shots, basically, so that the backers or prospective backers go, "Oh, that looks really cool. I'd like to."
Yeah.
Well, here's the question. The whole point of a Kickstarter campaign is to get people excited about what you want to do, and you want to convince them that you know how to do it. I mean, at least a reasonable expectation that you can pull it off. The more elements you have in the campaign that are where there's already a fan base or people are excited about that subject or those actors, the better. It's just finding something. The starting point is always what excites you about it, and then creating the evidence that shows why other people would be excited about something similar, why they should be excited about this. How much money do you want to try to raise?
Well, I've been talking with the SAG-AFTRA people and gotten the brochures and all that, and so looking at an ultra low budget, 250, and maybe that can be stretched to 300,000, I guess. That's just ballpark.
Remember, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not really at that point where I should commit to that.
Oh, right. No. You don't. But one thing that's very interesting is to look at the successful campaigns on whatever venue you're going.
Yes, you can do a lot of research on those platforms,
and you'll see that there are several things that are consistent, and you'll also see why the campaigns that failed.
Yes.
One of the things that people are scanning and looking for is, I want a piece of entertainment that I would not be able to go to my TV for. I'm putting up money to see something that would probably not be seen unless I put some money into it.
Yes.
So it's like you're convincing a family. You're not trying to sell something. You're convincing a family to join your family. So the more that you in showing, one, cool stuff, and two, the heart of it. What is driving you? Why do you feel you really want to get this story told? Why the story needs to be shared? And if you look at the successful campaigns, you'll kind of see that and say, oh, I see how they're whipping up excitement. And they vary tremendously in how much people spend or how much tech there is. But you do get a sense of the filmmaker's excitement. And you get a sense of the clarity of their vision.
Yes.
And you say, oh, I think I really would like to see that. So that would be partially you're talking about it, partially who you bring on, who could talk about why they've joined on board, and some of it would just be shooting a few really cool moments.
But also one thing to remember is that you can divide up the amounts you raise into pre-production, production, and post. And so, in other words, you don't have to raise the entire budget in one fell swoop, and that can also help a lot.
So that was another question my wife just asked me this morning. She said, okay, after you get to the principal photography and you do that, then what? And do you have money left over for editing and so on?
Well, that can be a secondary campaign. So let's say,
that's
what
I thought.
Yeah, but again, look at what people are able to raise and see why they were able to raise those amounts, because 300,000 is pretty high for someone, unless you have some named person, or there has to be something that really
experienced.
Yeah.
You can use the names of the people you bring on board.
Yes.
And the person normally to guide you through the expense would be your line producer.
Yes.
But that's where you really want to be careful about picking a line producer, because some of them have either gone the studio route and they don't know how to film economically.
Right.
But the main thing is you want someone with a lot of imagination who knows how to shoot economically, who is very keen on what you have to say. They really get your movie. And when I was interviewing line producers, I'd ask them to glance over it, and then I'd say, tell me how you see this movie. And some of them, and the one I picked was the one who really had some enthusiasm and felt the heart of the film. And then we were able to work out how to do things that should be expensive in a very inexpensive way, very economical way.
Yeah.
I should point out that although I'm in that ultra low budget 250,000 category, that's not what I'm thinking I have to spend or will spend. I mean, it could be hopefully significantly less than that.
Yes. Now, also remember, another way of doing it with SAG is, until you sell your project, you can define what it is, which means that you don't necessarily have to use a SAG ultra low feature, contract. You can use a new media contract, and often those costs are much less. And then what happens is, if you then sell it as a feature or whatever, then it just goes up to whatever those rates would be. That can be in what you negotiate with your actors and so forth. But new media is good, because almost everything now, one way or another, you watch it on a TV set or a computer or a phone, and it's basically deliverable content. I mean, that's even true of what would have been studio films, theatrical films. A lot of those are now debuting on Netflix, and so that's just something to keep in mind, that can be of help as well. So anything else, Robert?
No.
Okay.
I've got a ways to go.
Okay.
And I appreciate your input for sure.
Sure.
Great.
Good for you.
Yay.
By the
Well,
way,
3 cheers. Yay. So, Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
There is. We've
Great.
got the age-old question from Wilhelm Sowers.
Hi, Wilhelm.
When is the newest episode due out?
Well, we're looking to get it done around January and ship it. We're getting a lot of visual effects shots in right now. There's 900 VFX shots in the second hour, just as there are in the first. Our goal is to get the Blu-rays and DVDs and all that stuff with all the extras and the commentaries shipped off to our Kickstarter backers, and go from there. But it's looking pretty damn good. Dave and I have been cooking on it, along with David Bartlett and Elaine and our visual effects people in Germany and America and Chile, etc. And it just keeps going. So yeah, we're really excited about it all. So it's fun, really fun stuff. And David Bartlett, just to mention something to you that I'm sure will thrill you. As you know, I've been putting together a set, like a science fiction rocket port departure area, a waiting lounge, and I found in my neighborhood I think 4 or 5 white leather chairs, a white end table, sort of Art Deco style, a white sofa, and I just found a white ottoman as well. So we're doing great with that. It all matches, and
You're not going back in time. I think we already have those.
Yeah, but we didn't have the ottoman, so that's just so again, you could do a lot with that.
I don't think so.
And
that's
no,
going to double as the green room.
It's great. It can for
We already have that.
the little people. So yes, exactly.
It's close to the green room.
Well, yeah. So here we are. So anyway, so that's the answer, Wilhelm. Soon, and we're going to be shooting a lot more, and there's a lot of stuff coming up. So so that's very exciting. So now Mike Lopez. Yeah, what? Oh, Paul. Sorry, Paul, I forgot. There you go, Paul. Go for it.
It's all right, don't worry. Sorry I haven't been here the last couple of weeks. But actually, I'm just waiting for Mark to go. Beam me up, Scotty.
Yes, yes.
And just for Adam, Merry Christmas.
Yes, yes.
We got a nice present there for me. Yeah, I've been very, very busy. It's been really good the last couple of weeks. I'm just putting together a 6-part TV series about ladies football.
Wow, great.
Show. I put a casting call on Facebook of all places, just out of curiosity. And I've got over 1,000 football players and
wow.
got 100 and so football teams all applying for the jobs.
Wow.
So it's really good.
That's great.
Great.
I've been asked to do about 5 different movies, but because we're all in lockdown now, we can't do anything.
Well,
are you in England, sir?
Yes.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Oh.
He's in England.
You're in England.
Yes, he's in Liverpool.
So, yeah, I'm in Liverpool, England. If you want me to talk slower, I will do.
No, it's fine.
Perfect.
So
there's a lot of the questions that Robert just asked about funding. I was going to ask you anyway, so
yes.
I'll probably email you privately and
sure.
ask you some questions.
I mean, the real part of all this, because I never raised money before Space Command, and I just worked for the studios and the networks, but now I'm closing in on about $2 million, having raised that over the last few years, and the sky's the limit. What I did was, along with my team, we sort of sussed out what worked, and part of it was I have a certain fan base, and the actors I put onto the show have their own fan base. And I sort of looked at, in my case, science fiction and the different subgenres of science fiction fandom. So there's Star Trek, Babylon 5, Star Wars, etc. Yes, and so forth. So by doing that, and Buffy and so forth, I was able to kind of like draw upon the fan bases of all those different things. And that's how we were able, in our first campaign, our target in our first campaign was 75,000, and we raised 221,000. So that was great. But the mistake most people make is they try to raise too much money, because I realized that I couldn't raise millions in that first campaign, even though some campaigns have. So I said, okay, I'll raise thousands, and then we split production, where we shot for 4 days initially. Then several months later, after raising more money, we shot more and finished that 2-hour pilot, finished principal photography. So, I mean, the main thing is to say, okay, is there someone I can attach who has a fan base? Is there a story that would engage people? And by that, I mean a personal story. Like, for instance, if you said, I was found in a wicker basket floating down the Thames, and yeah, and then my dream was always to be in movies or whatever, something, because the difference between the way things used to be done and the way things are done now is it used to be about the project. But now it's about the project and about who you are, the authenticity, your story. And the more you can engage people with that, if it's germane, the better. And
because it is intriguing, the topic is intriguing. And then people would want to say, well, what hooked you into that particular topic?
Yes.
It's unusual.
Yes.
And so just sharing a bit of what hooked you, and letting your own excitement show, that would be really good.
And also, sometimes you can reach out to people. If someone succeeded in a campaign, you can reach out to them on their social media and say, hey, could I just have like a Zoom call with you and get some pointers, whatever. I mean, people are pretty open to sharing what worked and what didn't. And also just recognize that anytime you have a Kickstarter campaign, it's extremely stressful and you have to work very, very hard. But when you succeed, it's great, because suddenly you've got a bunch of money to do stuff with, and that's not a bad thing.
One thing I noticed with you, Mark, is you're very, very good at your little video clips.
Yes.
And you feel as though your hand's going into your pocket already.
Yes. That's my goal, and that's mainly thanks to Dave Edison, because he's my editor, and we really put a lot of time with the Kickstarter videos. We put a lot of time into having them work, and we go back and forth with it and get notes. And in our first campaign, we actually put off the launch a couple months just so we could get the video right. And you know, I don't know if you want to mention anything about that, Dave, but you know, you've been a great asset.
Went through months of changes on it.
Yes.
But, yeah, we just using every trick in the book, trying to remain as close to honest and honorable as we could. Of course, all that's gone out the window.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. We're older now and just worn down, but
but yeah, we spent a lot of time on it. But thanks for saying that.
yes, but also, but I'll,
Are you taking it down?
yeah, I will.
I'll do it.
No, I'll do it. You can keep going. But the last thing about that was that also I have my Mr. Sci-Fi YouTube channel, which we're simulcasting on now, because that allows me to just ongoingly do posts about science fictional things that are of interest to me or whatever, that helps strengthen the relationship. Yes, that helps strengthen. No, I'll do it. No, I'll go. Elaine with the dogs need to be walked, but that helps strengthen me as a product.
Just before you go, can I just say one thing
Of
about
course.
the election and everything else?
Oh,
Yes.
Apparently, Trump didn't want to leave. He
No.
wanted not four more years. He wanted 4 more terms, so he could say the White House was his.
Yes.
So he's going to build it into a hotel and a golf course around the house.
Well, that would be great, particularly if they had a monorail. I think a monorail would be great, and you know, a chocolate fountain that'd also be good. So
I wish it was that benign.
yeah, well, but we won't veer off into that subject.
No,
So
You're
forget about
turning it
that.
into a whorehouse.
God, but okay. So back on, but thank you, Paul. Anything else you need?
Right, no, that's fine. Thanks, Mark. I'll
Yay.
be going shortly
Okay,
because
Yeah.
I'm up early in the morning.
Exactly.
In the morning now.
Well, it's great to see you. 3 chairs.
Thank
I'll take
you.
the dogs.
Thank you.
And I'll be right back. Go,
Okay, I'll
go
be
for
right
it.
back.
Elaine.
It's just
Yeah.
seeing to our little terriers who are very demanding. So we'll
May
get.
I ask, if I may ask,
Sure.
did you guys raise all this money only on Kickstarter, or you had other
No, We
sources?
sold investment shares.
Well, we started from the Kickstarter. Several people were very comfortably well off, and we started to sell shares. So we formed an LLC. We got an attorney involved. We got the paperwork, and we were selling shares in its eventual sale. So no, it wasn't just Kickstarter. Then there have been multiple campaigns, but
So you basically set up a company and
Yes.
you started selling shares in the company.
that's correct. As well as continuing with Kickstarter, where you get just goodies and the movie. We also sold actual shares that were against any kind of potential profits
On the first 4
on the
hours of the
first
show.
4 hours of the show,
Mhm.
which
Yeah, it's not exactly the company, it's shares
Yeah.
against producers' income of profit.
Right.
that's right
Different.
against market
Okay.
because it
So they
changed.
retain the IP, but the shareholders get profit back from sales.
Yeah,
I
because
see.
our
Okay.
and for that, it's like, and a lot of shares have been sold, so a lot of whatever potential profits that we would get personally are sort of like not there anymore. But so you have to be someone who really wants to make stuff. You know, if you really want to make stuff, it's a difficult game. You know, some people get rich, but most people don't. And Mark and I just really want to make stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important to get someone professional to make this document because it's a legally binding document. The
Yes.
SEC and all that stuff. It's
Yeah.
it's not a small thing. You do it really correctly so that when the investor signs that, it's actually binding and it'll be okay down the road.
Yeah. I wouldn't advise.
Oh, okay,
starting-
I can see that, but let me ask you something. Should I go, for example, on Kickstarter? It is too early to start anything like
Oh,
that
yes,
right now for me.
it
No,
is.
Kickstarter is completely different. Kickstarter doesn't have any investors.
Well,
Oh,
some people ended up being investors,
No,
but
but they
no.
just give you money
Yeah, they start
via
out by just giving
Kickstarter.
you money.
and you give them stuff.
And you give them stuff, but then ultimately, yes, it you know, once we were like on more solid ground, then we created the LLC, and we had like something to sell, but no, not at first. We started out with Kickstarter, and it just happened that when we reached out to get some people to invest, that a lot of them were initially came to us, learned of us through Kickstarter. But it's
Yeah,
separate.
there's actually basically 4 kinds of investors. They're not investors. Investor is someone who gives you money to get a profit back. Okay? With a charity, they're giving you money as a contributor. And that money is given to you for a purpose that you have to be accountable for. A gift is someone who just gives you some cash. And then the 4th one is the Kickstarter campaign, where someone is giving you a contribution to the Kickstarter campaign and they are getting something back in the form of, a mug or a script or something along those lines. There's something that's exchangeable with it, but it cannot be made for a profit at all.
What if you want to set it up as half of your profits? I'm going to set up a production company where half of my profits are going to a certain nonprofit organization.
Yeah, you can do that.
But
Right.
for these kinds of things, do talk to an entertainment attorney. I mean, once you start dealing with the LLCs, once you start dealing with, you're dealing with the government, and you want to have very, very clean hands. So that's where it's important.
You have to be accountable to these investors, and if someone's investing some money in for a purpose of a profit, they have to prove that their net worth is greater than 10 times the investment they're putting in, and that's a legal document too. It's involved.
Yeah, you do this through the Security and Exchange Commission. They're very strict with entertainment people because it's so glamorous. And what was happening before the SEC became involved, Security and Exchange Commission, is filmmakers would pick on widows and orphans and spend all their money. And so it became
just like that movie, The Producer. Don't forget the chicken.
Yes, exactly.
Orphans.
So it became. I mean, a lot of people in the way back were being seduced by the glamour, and so one of the things that we will put in your paperwork when you hand out a prospectus for an investor is you will probably lose your shirt. There's language that is insisted upon by the Security and Exchange Commission, which warns people that this is a very, 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 very high risk enterprise. And
the entire front page of the document is bold type, uppercase warnings guaranteeing you will not make any money.
Yeah.
Line after line after line for a whole page.
But if someone is rich, really rich, and they want to be part of creating what you're creating,
they're not going to care about that.
Well, they're going to be investing because they want you to see your project done. If they're investing to make a profit, they will be buying real estate, not.
So what's the best way? What's the best way for people like that who can do something with me, for me to show them what I got, to show them my script, my synopsis, whatever, my novel that I've written, which the screenplay is based on it.
But here's something that's really hard to deal with for a filmmaker. I've found a lot. That is that you have to find out what they want to have and then give them that. Because every filmmaker I've met on an introductory level thinks they know what they're going to like, and they try to shove it to them and say, buy this from me. That's backwards. They don't like that. First of all, they know it's high risk. They know it's the movie business, and they know that you don't have much experience. So the reason that they're there is because they like that. There's two kinds of investors. The kind of investor that you will never convince to give you money in your project, and the kind of investor that you will never talk out of giving you money for your project. Those are the two types. So you don't have to sell them anything. You just have to tell them what the project is and have them become interested in telling you what they want to have.
But
you have to be very patient. You have to be very patient. You can't talk too much.
Well,
I was figuring I'm not doing any talking at all. I'll start a Kickstarter campaign and put the synopsis on it.
Yeah.
We should talk about this more later if you want, but you have to make a video. You have to do it before the campaign starts. You can't just start at a dead stop on the first day. There's a lot of rules about that. And Space Command did it right the first time, and they really broke the mold with how to do this because no one had ever done a narrative project before that was feature length. No one had done that. And Space Command was the first one to set those rules, and they made almost 3 times what they were asking for, and it was a big deal at the time. And there were reasons why that happened. So it would behoove you to find out what they are.
But in terms of finding investors, sometimes attorneys, there are funder finders, but it's a very long topic. But you have to be very, very careful because there are a lot of sham guys out there pretending to be investors. So that's, again, where a reliable entertainment attorney can guide you through the steps. Or once you're ready to start with those steps, other conversations can be had. But it's getting money for your movie is a long topic. And you have to be able to spot the phonies. You know, it's hard because you're talking serious money. Serious money.
I know I probably won't see it in my lifetime, but I'm going for it anyway.
What the hell?
The other thing is, too, that if you put this out there on the internet and someone decides they don't like you, and they start to give lies about you of what you are doing, which isn't true, you might spend the rest of your career trying to mop up that mess. So it's got to be squeaky clean so they have nothing to point at.
Yeah, but you can do that. You can do that. That's what attorneys are for. That's what specifically these guys are for. They've had a lot of experience in this, and they can walk you through it step by step. But it's hard to find the funder who is interested in the movies, but they do it. They definitely do it. But starting with the crowdfunding is definitely a good idea. Definitely a good idea. Okay, well, we better move on. We'll get back to our live chat for Mark. He'll be back shortly. He's just going around the block. So, Mike.
Also, Elaine,
yes.
After each person talks, it's good to mute your mic because you might kick it on by accident.
Oh, right. Yeah. Be careful to mute once you're done talking. Yes.
Or there might be background noise or something.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Mike, how are you?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm doing well. Jim's doing well. We celebrated Veterans Day yesterday.
Oh,
for those of you who don't know, Jim Metropole is a longtime table member. He's been around longer than Marc and Elaine. And he had a stroke, so I take care of him. And so to celebrate, I decided to take him out for a breakfast, and we had a really good time.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I actually don't need anything right now. Everything is all set for my project that we're filming next month.
That's great. Wow.
I've got just about everything I need. Everything is good. Just to let everybody know, if you've got a film project that has some kind of a law enforcement element, I can help you out. I've got all the gear, equipment, uniforms, and experience that you would need. I have 14 years at the LAPD. I was also a minister, so if you've got some kind of a religious element too, I can help you out with that too. I even still have my clerical collar from my ministerial days, which were a long time ago. Other than that, everything's good. At this point, I don't need anything. So just here to help everybody and to support everybody.
Well, the last time we spoke, you said that Jim, you wanted to double check some of his numbers, that there are certain things that were not going too well. Was everything okay? Did you have them checked out?
Oh, yeah. Well, no, actually, we have an appointment coming up.
Oh, okay.
To check his PSA.
Okay.
That's an indicator in a blood test that shows whether you've got prostate cancer or not.
Oh, yeah.
And it was interesting because he had his prostate out 10 years ago. So something's up. Doc said that we'll check him out, do some more blood tests, do some ultrasound, CAT scan, and we'll just see if there's anything there. We're just, as far as that's concerned, it's wait and see. But he's really good. He's got a good appetite. Doesn't have any other physical problems except for the stroke. So everything is well. So until I hear differently, everything is going really well.
Oh, and for any of you who don't know, Mike walked me through a fight scene, which was very complicated, an emotionally complicated fight scene, and he walked me through it, which was really great. And also, Mike started out as a frustrated writer who is now a filmmaker, no longer frustrated.
Yes. That's right. That's
okay,
right.
Yeah.
Thank you for the upgrade, Elaine. I appreciate that. Yeah, I did. I started as a writer and just didn't go anywhere. And then I decided to greenlight myself.
Yay.
And I keep telling Marc to write a book called Greenlight Yourself.
Which is, and so he's doing that very thing. Okay.
And so now, ever since the doctor told me I had a lot of medical problems, I've decided I'm going to follow my dream and just make as many movies as I can.
Yeah.
You can see some of them on my YouTube page, Michael Charles Lopez. I've actually done some films with Jim too, little 5-minute films with him. Also some stand-up I also have I also did fight choreography for a web series. It's called Mr. Wayne Goes to Hollywood. It's episode 4. And there's 2 women fighting over a guy, and I choreographed the whole fight scene for the guy. So give me a call. Let me know if I can help you out. I'd be more than happy to.
Okay. Yay. Thank you. Yay. Okay. While continuing to wait for Mark, he should be back very soon. Should we go on to Julian?
Hi, how's that?
Good. Okay. Yay.
Is that me? Hi, how
Yes.
are you?
Good.
I was invited by my friend Nazim. Nazim and I have been working together online on a multi-platform where we read scripts and screenplays. It's really fun. It's very popular. There's one called Table Read My Screenplay. And then the one we've been working on is Read Me a Movie, which I more or less invented. Nazim will knock your socks off. He's a great actor. He got me in tears.
Wow.
My name's Julian Phillips. I'm in East Bay, San Francisco. I'm not familiar with this group. I was a member of a writer's roundtable years ago. I've been freelancing most of my life. I'm a retired journalist, newspaper editor for years, most of my career. And then I did a lot of films, a lot of small films for hire. I'm entranced with your group because sci-fi is my thing. I mean, we're on book 3. I'm for hire. I'd love to share it with Mr. Sci-Fi. And what's the YouTube channel called?
Well, what's the YouTube channel called? Adam?
With Mr. Space Commander? No,
Well, Mr. Sci-Fi.
Sci-Fi is the YouTube channel. Mr. Sci-Fi.
Mr. Sci-Fi. I gotta check it out, Adam. I mean, I'm hired a lot for screenplays. I've been hired for 12 features. You can see my features on IMDb and about 4 or 5 features, a lot of documentaries. And then I was hired. We've been working on these guys. We got number 3 coming up, and we're like, what are we? That one now is 107,000 words. Tom Long film in LA. We had 461,000 Facebook fans in 2019 because I would take the chapters and I'd clip video onto it, right? We haven't made a penny on the whole thing, but they're really great stories. So I'm glad to be part of the group. There's some things that I could offer, but I'm not sure what's expected. My big project that's close to my heart is called Gun Zero. Gun Zero is a fully developed 2-hour sci-fi adventure, registered WGA, and it's a science fiction about a near future weapons marvel that is invented in the future. So, thank you for having me, and I guess I'll just listen. I have some other things I could talk about, but I want to send you guys my novel. So.
Well, basically, this is
Space Command sounds great. I love that.
Oh, thank you.
I went ahead and left the link in the chat for you, and for anyone who wants to check out Marc's YouTube channel, Mr. Sci-Fi. And the first episode of Space Command is on his YouTube channel there.
Yeah.
Wow,
Okay.
how cool.
Yeah.
And Mr. Sci-Fi is like, it's a video, it's a chat show live or a podcast or?
Well, it's just sort of, he'll Mr. Sci-Fi, he'll talk, he'll give opinions, he'll get feedback, just talking about sharing science fiction. And the group, which was founded way over 20 years ago, it's just artists of every type, helping artists of every type. And the thing about it being storytellers, including people who do, costuming for to help the story along, or producers or directors, or it's not a question of like writers picking each other's work apart. It's a question of making stuff. And so there's no charge, there's no fee. Anything that's done is voluntary. We have an email, which right now David Bartlett is helping us continue to run. You can sign up through David Bartlett. And if you say, hey, I want to put something together, I need a DP, I need an art director, I need this, and this. It's low fee, or it's trade for favors. You just put it out there and you hit several thousand people who are all the hell over. Some in California, some in Great Britain, and just all across the country. But it's been joined by thousands of people. It's sort of, everybody is saying, okay, this is the Hollywood that we wanted Hollywood to be, which is supportive and artists helping artists. And so the idea took off. So that's what we are.
What is it known as? What is the moniker on it so I can find it?
It's called
Round Table something?
It's called The Table. The Table. But it's by invitation only, not to be exclusive, but the fact that table members come and they get a sense of what the table's about. It's not me, 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 me. It's this is what I need and this is what I have to offer. So that's the main thing. So the reason it's not...
I'm new, believe me. I'm not new to media and the arts, but I'm new to your group. So I'll listen. I'm glad to be here. I'll check out Mr. Sci-Fi.
Okay.
And I'd love to kick it around. I'm Sci-Fi way back. I mean, Isaac Asimov and the guys that hire me, to write the Sci-Fi, my co-writer, like if you go back, Kurt Vonnegut and Heinlein and those guys. So I'd love to discuss it with anybody who's literate of sci-fi. Otherwise, I'll just listen in this evening and hire me. Gun Zero's my project. Anybody want to hear about it? It could change the world. It really could. Ron Howard's Impact, Imagine, looked at it, and 3 of my other ones. And, I've had options for $20 million films. I really have. And I've worked with, I did press releases for Clint Eastwood and one of my friends, his buddies with Willie Nelson and stuff. But it is difficult to climb that mountain, and we're all in it together, I suppose, up the Himalayas.
Yes, we are. Well, welcome. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yay. Okay, Mark will be joining us in a second, but Thane, are you available? Thane, have you disappeared on us for the moment? I guess we'll have to get back to Thane.
I could take my turn in the
Okay,
meantime.
great. No, please jump in.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Adam Sartain here, Zoom master. I'm an actor, a voice actor with over 75 voices, accents, impressions. I am a professional Santa Claus.
Yay!
And I am an associate producer on Space Command.
Yay!
So things are looking up. For those who haven't heard, I have been hired on by a brand new company called Jingle Ring that does virtual Santa Claus visits. And starting not this weekend, but next weekend, I'll be doing virtual visits as Santa Claus. So if you have family with little kids and they're looking to meet Santa this year and can't find a mall where you can get within 6 feet of them, check out jinglering.com. And when you're filling it out, use my, if you're asked for a jingle ID, mine is jingle 181. I'll go ahead and put all that in the chat.
Wow.
But yeah, so I've been busy with that. Also, hey, Marc is back.
I'm back.
And we're going to do, Marc's, I'm sure he'll be telling you more about that later, but sometime soon we're going to be doing a table read of a new show, Sweet Haven, that Marc's collaborating with Rocky O'Bannon on. So that's really fun and cool. Marc will tell you more about that, I'm sure.
I will.
And just other than that, yeah. I did a trailer for a friend of mine, and apparently she was very impressed. So that was good. And then I just found out that the executive producer told her, let's try one without a voice. So it's just, I don't think it was any fault of mine, but it's just the way it works.
So anything you need, Adam?
Not right now. No, I'm doing good.
Okay, well, cool. Yay! 3 cheers. Excellent. So do we have a Mr. Sci-Fi question?
We've got lots backed
Aha.
up. It's ready to
Cool.
go. So we've got a question from Scott Baker.
Hi, Scott.
In Star Trek, an episode called "And the Children Shall Lead"
Yes.
starred
Melvin Belli.
as
Yes.
the friendly angel,
Yes.
and his son was cast as one of the kids.
Huh.
Do you know why Marvin and his son were cast?
It was Melvin Belli. He was a very, very famous trial lawyer at the time, and I have no idea. He's not good in it exactly. It's a very odd episode, but you know, you never know. I mean, sometimes someone will be at a party and they'll say, you know, I like your show Star Trek, and if you ever see something that I could do, it'd be fun. You know, and then bang, they cast him. It's called stunt casting, which is when you cast someone where it's sort of like, Melvin Belli's in Star Trek? Well, we got to watch that. You know, and so the idea is to reach to a different fan base via stunt casting. So it's like, for instance, if we put Mike Tyson in Space Command, for instance, it's like, well, okay, how odd, but you know, but people would check it out. So you know, so it's that, and but it's definitely one of the trippier, weirder episodes. There's also, of course, the one with the space hippies, which I recommend. I you know, it's just there's some really great episodes of the original Star Trek, and some episodes that are very much you go, what were they thinking? So so let's see. So where are we, Elaine? Is it Dave Edison or Thane, or where are we?
Thane.
Oh, Thane. Okay, Thane, go for it, Thane.
We're just on the top row.
Okay, great. So you did Julian.
Is my mic working?
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
We got a new camera, and so I'm trying out the equipment here. I'm Thane Allison, SAG-AFTRA character actor. Variety of projects completed, and looking forward to the next one. I believe Adam and I are going to be playing in a Santa Claus movie. Koshik is another one of his films.
Great.
And looking forward to that. And just remember, Adam, age and treachery always trumps youth and vitality. So we'll see what happens here. At any rate, my one-man show's coming together, and I'm getting ready for a staged reading of that online. And SAG had an interesting workshop on Wednesday, I believe, Tuesday, where Netflix has started shooting a TV series or video series where it's all done remotely via iPhone. And they talked about the problems and so on. And I thought tuning in, it was going to be, all right, you're now locked at home and you've got to do an audition. Here's some tips. And what it turned out is they had 13 iPhone 12s dropped at their front door, and a courier picked them up at the end of shooting every day. There was a total crew of about 30 that they were able to see via Zoom as they were filming their, it was a husband and wife team, their shots and so on. And a sound guy in a tent a half a mile away handling all the stuff. And a camera expert to tell them how to set up their iPhones with all the special tweaks that you can do. So it wasn't very profitable from the standpoint of helping the lonely Maytag repairman here try to shoot something. But it was, I think, indicative of a lot of the work that's going to be done in the next year.
Yes.
There is hope.
And
your show is very much in that genre.
Well, the pandemic episode of Space Command that we did was a 2-hour episode where we used, but one thing I was very cognizant of, I was cognizant of two things. One was that it would be of its moment. So in other words, people would cut us slack because they knew the challenges we were shooting under, but also my idea was that it wouldn't just be monologues. It would be some monologues, which was fun for the actors, of course, and fun to write. It would be 2 character scenes, 3 character scenes using visual effects, tricks. It would be, we used 2 scenes that we'd shot previously but not yet released, the one with Nichelle Nichols and the other with Angelique and Nathaniel Freeman. And so forth, but I think a lot of these things that are being done now, utilizing the Zoom and iPhones and so forth, done during the pandemic, will be very much of the moment. And after the pandemic is over, people really, other than historians, people really are not going to give a shit, really. I mean, it's going to be like, oh, okay, I remember that when we couldn't go outside and blah blah blah. It'll be nostalgia, but people will very, very, very quickly go back to, let's watch like a movie that's normal. Let's watch a TV show that's normal. Let's see something with a car chase.
But our actors were great.
Yeah.
Great performances.
Yes, exactly. But that's again why I didn't allocate much in terms of budget to that 2-hour episode, because I knew that we shouldn't drain our resources for the other episodes that we had in prep and in post, just for something that would be kind of fun to do, but not, it's almost like a home movie in a way. And that was, so I was very aware of what we were doing and why we were doing it. But it was fun to do. And certainly I'm proud of what we pulled off, but yeah. So any questions, Thane? Anything you need?
No, working on my voiceover work, just trying to exercise the muscles there.
Great.
And I have a video I'm going to voice if the lawnmower guys ever stop mowing the lawn, disrupting the world, and a couple of other projects that just trying to stay productive and creative with.
Great. Well, good. So, it's good to see you as always. Let's be cheers. Yay. Great. So, Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes. It always happens when you're trying to record. That's when all the noise always happens.
Yes.
We've got a question from Sebastian Krupka, who asks, what are the chances of running a Star Trek show where the ship is a shuttlecraft managing its way from point A to point B and adventure ensues?
Well, it's a little tricky because the shuttlecraft is so small. You can only have 6 people or something. And so I think over the length of the series, that would become very limiting. It's not that you couldn't do it. You absolutely could. But when you have a larger cast or larger possibilities, it gives you more variety within your stories. Star Trek is a very specific property, and that's going to be whatever CBS decides to do with it. But the idea of doing, like a web series about a shuttlecraft and it has to land at various places or whatever. There's a really interesting episode of the original Star Trek called Galileo 7 that's about a shuttlecraft that crashes and what happens, and it's very, very good. And it's funny because they came up with the shuttlecraft as sort of like a last minute kind of thing, and they didn't have hardly any money to design it. So they put together what they called it the flying shoebox. and it's really, really true, but I still love the shuttlecraft. It was such a fun design. And, but yeah, so one could do it, but I don't think they're gonna. So that's that. So Dave will be right back. So is Ronnie the next person, Elaine? How about you, Ronnie?
Oh yeah.
Yay, go for it. Yay,
Hello.
there we go.
Hello,
Good.
yay.
Hey, Ronnie.
Hi, Ronnie Collins. I missed you guys last week. Life got in the way, just got busy, things like that. Had some stuff to do. My account or me being here is pretty much what I needed. I need to get back on track. So what I needed is just to be here, listen to all you guys, and hear what's going on, and to help put me back in focus mode. So this is what I needed, was just to be here and listen.
Okay,
so
cool.
Thank everybody for that. I appreciate it. And yeah, my goals for this winter, by the end of the year, is to get that reel done.
Good. And again, it's like the whole challenge with the moment that I was saying a moment ago is that just to be inventive, to be clever. I mean, the real answer with anything that any of us make, including a reel, is be entertaining. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, I remember this great thing that a writer once did. This is back when actors would have their reels on VHS tape. That's how long ago it was. And there was a writer who sent in a writing sample, a script, and he also included a reel, and his name was on it. It said like writer's reel. And they thought, what the hell is this? And they put it on, and it was a shot of a desk with a computer. And after a moment, the writer comes into frame, sits down, turns on the computer, and starts typing. And then it starts with his name and ends with his name. And that was it. And they were so amused. They were so amused by that they read his script, and they gave him, the time of day just because it made them laugh. And so the trick is always to say, what's going to entertain people who are used to seeing things a million times, and it's like, what's gonna wake them up, and
but don't the thing is that people get too perfectionist about it, and it sort of gets you crazy. The thing is that if you don't have a reel, do the best you can, and you can keep improving it.
Mhm.
One of our table members is Damien Gerard, a Brit, and he was in our class. And he showed me his reel, and I said, well, this isn't going to help you. You need this other stuff. And he said, okay. And the next week, the next class, he had a completed other reel,
Mhm.
which had everything. And I went, well, how did, the way he was able to do that was he assumed that was the assignment. And he
Mhm.
just did it.
Right.
Because that was his deadline next week. And he did it, and he did everything, he put he put pieces of acting on that reel, which showed how he was the most powerful.
Yes.
Where he was the most powerful as an actor. And then, and since then, it's like he's added to it and put a lot of other stuff on it. But right then, he had a tool which he could use and I could use to show what a damn good actor he was.
Yes. Yes.
But that was because he told himself he had to do it in a week, and he did it in a week.
And that impressed us, of course.
Very much, yeah.
But of course, the acting had to be good, because we looked at an actor's reel today. An actor was recommended to us, and we looked at his reel, and it was just pathetic.
It was not good.
Yeah, it was like he wasn't delivering a performance. It was just, technically and in terms of performance, it just wasn't there. And he came highly recommended, but his what he presents as evidence of his ability is woefully inadequate. And there's no excuse, because now that we all have video cameras, in our phones and so forth, there is no excuse not to put in the time and effort to make something credible. And showing it to your friends and saying, does this work? And be honest, worth doing. And really, it's super important that your samples be your A game, period.
It just is. And what it's about for mostly is we believe you.
Yes.
And you're in the moment.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be melodramatic, big or melodramatic or weeping or anything like that. It's just that when you're talking to the camera, you're talking to your fellow actor. I believe I just walked into a room, and that's actually what's going on. And it's whatever you're talking about is something you care about profoundly.
Yes.
Whether the character's a nice character or
it's
really
layered.
damaged character,
Yeah.
and it's layered.
Yeah. So there's subtext. There's something going on under the lines, under the words. That's a big mistake that actors usually make, which is they think that the scene is the lines. It's not. And you have to create an inner life. You have to create something going on under the lines.
There was an exercise I did when I was teaching long ago, and it was I gave people scenes, women. It was a women's class.
Yes.
Scenes where they were angry, and they all did their scenes, and they were okay. They weren't bad,
Mhm.
but I said, okay, I'm not going to comment on these scenes this time. I'd like you to come back next week to share something that really happened to you,
Mhm.
that you're willing to share, that made you really, really angry, and just share the story.
Yeah.
It's not a monologue. You're just going to share the story of something really angry that you're not too embarrassed to share. So they came in, and they told stories of times that they were angry, and getting angry. It was like they had different expectations. There was hurt. There was vulnerability.
Well, they were
there
in the
was
moment.
shame.
They were in the moment, remembering it. Quiet, guys.
And what was
Quiet, guys.
important was
Rudy.
they were to be really enraged. There were all of these feelings of betrayal, these feelings of hurt, there were all these complicated feelings, very complicated feelings. And then I went back and I said, why wasn't Why wasn't
Hold
any
on
of
a
that?
second.
That I wasn't seeing any of that in your other angry scenes, in the ones that had been written. If you're really angry, a lot is going on, and a lot is going on beneath.
Thanks.
And I said, what you did was interesting, but it wasn't. Where was all of that complication that happens in real life when you're actually angry? And so what was wrong with those scenes was they hadn't done the work. They hadn't done the work of, how sweet.
Yes, very sweet.
How sweet.
Okay.
So it's that kind of subtext that one looks for.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, somebody
Go for
gave
it.
us candy.
Yeah.
For
looking after their life.
they were in
Austria.
They were in Austria for
Yes.
a long time.
At least that's their
And
claim.
so we were picking up their mail, which got very big.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Any other questions?
Anything else? Any other questions?
Other than no, you guys actually answered more than I had. So thank you.
Oh, good.
You're welcome.
Good.
Okay,
And again, remember, everything is a work in progress. So it's not about perfection. It's about do the best you can at this point, and then just slowly but surely improve it. But the main thing is be very open to constructive comments, but be very careful to avoid toxic ones. Okay, and the way you know the difference is because people are not saying how they would do it. They're not saying that you'll never make it. They're not being global about it. They're saying, I believe this moment, but this moment, so I found myself, not buying it or whatever. You want people who are kind of rooting for you, but will be honest. And that's so you really kind of cultivate your team,
and not
your team.
envious. Yeah.
Yeah. So anything else, Ronnie? Okay, yay, 3 cheers. Look, there's a dog here. So another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes, let's go to Mark Lungo.
Hi, Mark.
Who says, Ken Spears of Ruby Spears died today.
Oh, no.
Just 3 months after Joe Ruby.
Wow.
Do you have any memories of working with them?
Boy, yeah. I mean, I started in my early 20s, I started writing animation. That's how I got into TV. And the challenge was that I was writing for so many companies, I would have to look on my own resume to see which shows I wrote for were Ruby Spears, because I was also writing for Deke and Hanna-Barbera and Marvel and Filmation and Tokyo Movie Shinsa and so forth. So I, my memories of Ruby Spears are not really super clear. They were fine. They were nice. Everyone was working extremely fast, and we would all be working on multiple shows at once. So my memories of Filmation are a lot more specific, and also of Hanna-Barbera and so forth. The fun thing about Filmation was I remember that they had a notice board, and one of the animators put something on the notice board that said, "Doing good work here is like wetting yourself in a brown suit. You get a warm feeling, but nobody notices." So that was, yeah. So great. So let's see. So I guess David Bartlett. Oh no, Dave Edison. We skipped you. Go for it, Dave.
Hey, how are you, everyone? Good morning. Those of you who are on Zoom can see I'm looking up. I'm working on shots to send to the VFX department, actually specifically to our new guy in Chile, who's sending back some terrific shots, wouldn't you say?
I haven't looked at the new shots, Dave, but yes, so far so good. Yes.
Yeah, he's very talented.
Great.
And are you eating chocolate without giving any to the dogs?
You do not give chocolate to the dogs. Elena's walking over to give them a treat that they can eat. So
all right. Well, it was worth a shot.
Yeah, really.
Jesus. So anyway, as we're working on that, we're moving forward one shot at a time.
Yes.
Filling out the second hour of the show, and that's keeping me busy. I'm doing a little bit of exercise finally. I got a bicycle.
Yes.
Somebody who I'd done some work for said, "Do you want a bike?" And I said, "You know what? It's now or never."
Yes.
So I might as well. So I've been tooling around the neighborhood, trying not to greet any
car
grills.
Yes.
But so far so good. So
yes,
that feels good to be put in this short rides, 20 minutes, a half hour. So
great.
That feels good and unusual because I'm usually sitting at this computer all day. Other than that, I mentioned the little web series I did for a friend called South of Sanity. So that's done. There's now a little bonus episode up, and that's at southofsanityshow.com. And another show that I had worked on. We only have 3 episodes, and we've been trying to get some more done. But it's a lot of fun, a little do-it-yourself show called Vintage America with Ginger. Now has a website, which is called vintageamericawithginger.com. So stop by, check it out. It's on Amazon Prime. It's on Tubi, Roku. It's on several platforms where you can watch them. They're only about 20 minutes apiece. And Ginger is very
she a
engaging.
redhead? Is she a redhead?
What day is this? Thursday? I can't recall. Sometimes. Yeah, Ginger's terrific. She's been a friend for quite a while, and she does a great job with the show, and we're hoping to do more of them.
Great.
For your holiday fair, since the holidays are coming up, I have my book, The Man with the List, which is great for the disbeliever on your list. Or if you just like to send them a link, you can go to YouTube and punch in, let's see, man list picture, and it should come right up. I animated it and narrated it, so you can watch that. And if you are a believer, you might not want to. So other than that, moving forward, I have, I'm looking forward to this. This will be fun. So a week from today, I'm going to be doing a little dental surgery. So I'm not going to be doing the dental surgery.
No.
I'll probably be getting the dental surgery.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't be doing the dental surgery.
You're not moonlighting.
But so if I'm puffy or not here next week, you'll understand why. And if I'm not here next week, the next week is Thanksgiving.
Wow.
So if you've got something planned, either alone with your family or you're managing to get a little group together, have a good, safe time. And either next week or the week after Thanksgiving, I will see you again.
Great. Yay. Cheers. Great. So is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes, and that does remind me. So next week we will have a regularly scheduled table meeting.
Yes.
But the week after is Thanksgiving, and we normally don't meet on Thanksgiving.
That's right. Yeah.
But of course, this is a very different year, and people won't, for the most part, won't be going to visit their families because they don't want to infect them. So I'll talk to Elaine. We'll see if we want to do something on that Thursday or not.
I can schedule it.
Well, maybe we could get a vote. Maybe we can get a vote.
Actually, but we're going to be out of town.
We'll be
so
out of town.
Yeah. So because we're going to go and out of town with the dogs or whatever we're doing. So okay, great. So is there a Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes, we have a question from Scott Baker.
Hi, Scott.
Who asks, did you see Oliver Stone's miniseries Wild Palms? Do you see any useful ideas in it, non-megalomaniacal ones, of course, for the use of VR?
I didn't really watch much of that show. I wasn't that big a fan of it, and I wasn't a big fan of the writer who created it. I'd read some of his fiction, prose fiction, so it was, it really didn't engage me. But so that's sort of my comment on that. But we just watched last night. We watched Leviathan, which is a science fiction movie with Peter Weller, because when James Cameron was shooting The Abyss, a couple of studios did sort of knock off underwater science fiction movies to try and beat him to the punch. And it's a very strange movie. It was designed, the visual design, the production design by Ron Cobb, who of course is hugely talented, and Stan Winston did the creatures. So all that works. But basically, that movie is if The Thing and Alien had a baby, and the shark from Jaws was the godfather, that's the movie you'd get. And it's interesting, certainly interesting. So that's something that I actually have seen recently.
Stealing every moment
from those movies, but not as good. It's basically
good.
It's like Alien if Ridley Scott didn't have any talent. So okay, good. So that's my answer. So David Bartlett, I guess you're next, huh? If you can manage to turn on. There you go.
Everyone.
Great.
Hello. I'm David Bartlett. I am a filmmaker, a teacher, and a human rights activist, and the co-producer of Space Command.
Yay!
Also the visual effects producer, the person that does the color correction. I built a studio, not by myself. And I've done quite a bit of other things on Space Command, casting and color correction and other things. So we are with our studio building sets for an upcoming shoot that's going to happen over a number of weekends.
Yes.
We're not sure when that'll happen yet, but that's going to happen one way or the other. And these sets are very cool. They're repurposed sets from Cloverfield Paradox. So you guys check that out and come down to the studio and go, wow, it's a big change, a simple change, but a big one. And they're really, I think they're really great.
Yeah, they're cool.
And then we have the haunted house sequence of Space Command Forgiveness we're going to be shooting. And that has some interior alien ship walls made again from repurposed at least twice that I know of cave walls.
Yay.
From their shoots of ours, and a shoot that we actually bought them from originally.
Right.
And very the sort of I started my career making my first film when I was 10, and then I did films in high school and did a lot of theater and worked in movie theaters until I was about 21. I moved to LA and I started working on films right away. And one of the places I worked was New World Pictures with the legendary B-movie maker Roger Corman. And I built some sets with the then production designer Jim Cameron, who of course was right around the corner from being James Cameron, and his fiance at the time, Gaylan Hurd, who's, you know, if you don't know who she is, you should definitely check her out on IMDb because she's a real titan of the industry. So when they were youngsters, relatively speaking, and working with Roger Corman, I worked there with them. So I learned a lot of ways to take not much money and make really cool things. Jim was doing a film called Galaxy of Terror that was a ripoff of the movie Alien.
Yay!
And he did the best he could to make it look as good as it could with almost no money, and it's pretty phenomenal what he's able to pull off. And I was there with that, so I've taken a lot of those concepts and put them into Space Command use. And some of them have become very interesting. I sort of randomly set up the cave walls in a sort of a herringbone shape like this, like you can go down between them just because I thought it was interesting, and our studio is not very wide. And then Marc ended up really liking that. And then I lined up another 6 of them all in a row just to demonstrate what they looked like. And it became a wall of these things. So we didn't think of that before. And then, you know, conversations went from that to Mossy, our cinematographer. He said, well, we could have a curved wall instead of having these freestanding. We can make these into a corridor. And all these other conversations now, we're doing a great deal with just these few set pieces that will end up being most of the haunted house sequence with a lot of clever lighting and fog. And we're making a big arched opening. There was a door in Space Command at one point that was about 7 feet high, and now it's the opening of an alien spaceship corridor, and it's quite different. When we get that done, we'll do a little tour of it in the studio. So anyway, that's
and when you say haunted house, you mean it in the same sense that Alien was a haunted house movie.
Yes.
It's not like we're dealing with ghosts and kind of old rotting.
No,
it's just a creepy, spooky, cool.
It's not actually ghosts and all that. It's aliens. It's Elaine's nickname for that sequence. It's 45 pages inside an alien spaceship that is very scary and dark and looks intimidating, and something could jump out at you at any minute, that sort of thing. And there's aliens show up out of the blue that we've never seen before, and there's a big fight and all sorts of things spring out of nowhere. So that's really what we meant. So we're not going to have people in tuxedos and top hats and all that. No,
not yet. but actually, it's funny because one story I've wanted to do for a long time, I just haven't gotten to it. It was an alien ghost story where it's like it's a small town like in New Mexico and it's haunted, and ultimately you realize the ghost is not a human; it's an alien that crashed there and died. And it's just such a fun. I've never seen that story. And so it just seemed to me that it'd be really fun to combine a ghost story with an alien on Earth story and see what I could do with it. But okay, so go ahead, David, please.
So anyway, I worked in Hollywood on some very big films early on, and I worked in the area also on a bunch of low budget independent films. And I worked with my first real advisor was Robert Wise, who did Sound of Music and West Side Story and won 4 Oscars for that, and a lot of other amazing films like The Haunting, which is a haunted house movie, which if you haven't seen, you should check it out. It's just pretty amazing. All the ghosts are done with sound and sound effects, and it's completely scary and believable and amazing. Anyway, he was also the editor of Citizen Kane. So he was a great person to have as my first advisor. And he said, if you want to learn how to make films, you should be an editor, because the editing is where all the bones are buried. That's where all the things you find out what works and doesn't work. And then if you want to get a job as a director, you should write the great American screenplays that you want so badly that they'll let you direct it. So he did a combination of those things, and one thing was he had to get out of the sound department of RKO. And I saw him at a seminar a couple of years later, and he said, "What are you up to?" And I said, "Well, I'm still working on being a director, and I'm working as a sound editor." And he laughs and says, "You got to get out of the sound department." So I did, and I started working on. I went from transition of the sound department of some very big movies like Pulp Fiction and Speed and Total Recall and Predator 2, and started doing my own independent films. And now I have a producer, director, writer, DP, and editor credits on many films, over 160 features, and I don't know how many short films, and I have 65 film festival awards. So that's all, combined. I always try, thanks to Mark, I'm trying to tell a new story each week about something I've experienced personally. So this week, I get to tell another story about Warren Beatty. Excuse me a second. So Dave McCann was a VP of Post at Disney Studios, and I was interviewing with him. He told me the story. Warren Beatty was the biggest movie star in the world at the time. He was the Tom Cruise of his day. And he was also a producer and a director later, and pretty amazing guy. Check out his earlier films and career. He's pretty phenomenal. So he'd done a film. I saw him. I already told the story about the projectionist is the last filmmaker in the chain, right? Did I tell that story already?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. So if you want to, you can email me and I'll tell you the story in an email or something, but here's a new one. This is Dave McCann is now working on Dick Tracy. Dick Tracy is starring and directed by Warren Beatty and also Madonna, and they were a couple at the time. So he was flying up on a Learjet that Disney owned with the print to San Francisco to have a screening. So he had the screening, and then of course, Warren Beatty's there, Bernardo's there, the whole thing. And so Warren Beatty afterwards comes out over to him and says, Dave, let me give me the jet. I need to take the jet back to LA. And he's like, okay. So he said, can you drive my car? So he had Warren Beatty's car in San Francisco. He says, okay, I'll drive it back for you. So he and Madonna wanted to fly in the jet back and late at night and, have their way with each other in the plane. So now Dave is driving the car back, and he ends up in the Santa Barbara, and he gets pulled over. So he's like, oh no. So the cop says, can I see your registration? He says, I work for Disney Studios. This is Warren Beatty's car and the registration. He says, yeah, show me the registration. So he does. And sure enough, the registration is Warren Beatty's car. So he says, he tries to get more information out of him. He still doesn't quite believe it. He says, why don't you pop the trunk? Now, Warren Beatty was also very famous for being a real ladies' man. He was very popular with some of the most beautiful women in Hollywood's history, like Annette Bening, who he later married, and Julie Christie for many years, and Natalie Wood and Goldie Hawn, and all sorts of amazing women. So they get out of the car, and the trunk pops open, and there in the trunk are stacks of brand new suits, beautiful shirts, shoes, pants, everything laid out like a valet had set it up. All he had in his trunk was amazing clothes. So the cop looked at Dave McCann and he said, this is Warren Beatty's car. And he let him go.
That's a good story. That's a good story. So anything else?
That's my story for the week.
Yeah.
That's
anything
great.
else, David?
Not about that. So now about two things.
Mhm.
Space Command.
Yay.
If you like the idea of Space Command and want to participate,
Who doesn't?
I'm the person to talk to. You can volunteer and come down to the studio. Sometimes I do work in my home studio, where we do, right now we're doing some cover budgets for some projects of Marc and Elaine's. And there's an opportunity for people to learn how to do budgets very quickly. The repetition of something is a good thing to do. We're doing 5 or 6 of them in a row, so this will be a very good opportunity for repetition. And I can use help with that. I'm also doing more things at the studio, more set building. Sanding and painting is always happening there somehow. And in fact, there's going to be a lot of painting right around the corner here soon. So if you're interested in doing that, if you want a paid position on Space Command, and one of my favorite things is helping people move up in positions. Oh, remind me to tell you a story about Beta. This is a good story too.
Okay.
So if you're interested in all this, contact me and I'll get you hooked up with that. Now, the other thing I was going to say was about the table email, but let me tell you the story of Beta first. Beta was my assistant. I had this wonderful assistant for a long time, and she had to move to the Dominican Republic, and Beta was recommended to replace her. So Beta trained up. She was doing a great job, and we had a good time. And then she had to stop because of her visa. So her visa said she wasn't allowed to get paid anymore. The only way she could stay in the U.S. was if she went back to school. So she applied to the Master's Cinema program at USC. I mean, who gets that, right? How many people get that each year? 200 people, 300 people? So I'm like, I'm trying to be encouraging. Like, okay, good. So she comes back and she said, yeah, I had a great interview there. And she said that the guy that interviewed me said to say hi. I'm like, oh God, who did she work with? Who did she interview with, right? So she said the guy's name is Steve Flick. Now, Steve Flick was the owner of one of the sound companies I worked on with Total Recall and Speed and Pulp Fiction and then Predator 2. So he and I had done Speed together, and he won an Oscar for that, and the sound mixers won an Oscar for that. So there was a bit of a controversy there that I won't go into, but I didn't get to share the Oscar with him. So I said to Beta, I said, he better get you picked, because the next time you see him, you should tell him that he owes me an Oscar. So a week later, she calls me and she says she got accepted to the USC Cinema Masters program.
That's great. That's great. Yay.
So she's being here. She's going to USC.
Yeah.
And part of it's because of this random connection I have with Steve Flick, and part of it's because I like helping people move up and get them to do the next thing they want to do.
Yeah, that's
There's
great.
an opportunity for that. So the table email. If you want to be on the table email and you're not, you should contact me, and I've put the information here with my email. You need to get an email name with yourself, your first and last name, and it can have numbers or whatever in it too, but it has to be your first and last real name, not Moogie Pie 12 or whatever. That's a real email, by the way. And at gmail.com. So you get that special email, send it to me, and I'll send you the information back on how to get set up for the email.
Cool.
If you're having troubles now and you can't get on, or you can't send an email or whatever, you can write to me about that too, and I'll look into that too. So that's kind of covers it.
Okay, yay, 3 cheers.
And
So
remember, if you don't have Gmail, and you're not that familiar with it, Gmail can be very easily set up to forward your emails to whatever address you want, so you can practically ignore it once your table email is set up.
great.
That's true, but you do have to use the table email area in the Gmail to send a table email.
If you're going to send, but if you're just receiving the emails, which are many a day, they'll come to you that way.
Okay, cool. Great. Thanks.
Can we have the email? Can we have an email address? I just sent a message here. Can I have you guys' email address?
It's in the chat.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah, it's davefilms@hotmail.com. Is that right?
Yeah, it's about 4 or 5
Down.
chats up. Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
Did I
cool.
get info?
Okay. Yeah, just reach out to Dave and he can help connect you up with the table email.
Yeah,
So
it's in the chat. Just check there.
great. And
okay. Thank you.
sure. And Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question? Because we're and for those who don't know what we're doing, we're simulcasting between my YouTube channel, Mr. Sci-Fi, and the table. So so that's what this is. So it's not me, speaking to my spirit animal or whatever. So so go ahead, please, Adam.
Yes. We have a question from Neil Webb.
Hi, Neil.
Who says, thoughts on Alexander Key? I foolishly adapted The Forgotten Door into a screenplay because I loved the story so much.
Wow. Alexander Key. I don't know that name. That's interesting. So, I don't have thoughts on that. So, that's surprising. I usually know most of the people who are working in the genres. So, so is there a second question, Adam, since I'm not able to respond to that one?
Let's go to usually I scroll for the next question while you're answering the first one.
I see.
Let's do
Or
no, I don't.
we could come back to you, Adam, if you'd like.
No, no, I have one. Oh yeah, here we go. Another question from Scott Baker. Can you speak to the question of how important it is to have a plan for 100% success? Apple learned this lesson once. Define 100% success for Space Command.
Well, I mean, in a way, for me, success was being able to make what I want to make. And so I'm, for me, I've achieved that. The next level, of course, is to sell it to the buyers and raise more money, significantly more money. And we're embarked upon those journeys. But in a certain way, I've already succeeded because I was able to, create the show. And, so now it's just continuing doing that. There's a great freedom to be able to make whatever you want to make. And to work with such wonderful actors, it's such an honor. So, and to work with Elaine and with Dave Edison and David Bartlett and all the various and sundry and Adam, and so forth. It's I'm by my lights I've succeeded, and I have more mountains to climb certainly. But no, this is the challenge with it's an interesting thing. Okay, I'll explain. Novelists write the finished product. And now that you can self-publish on Amazon, anyone can really be a novelist and have artistic satisfaction because they can write the novel, put it on Amazon, sell as many copies as they can sell, done. But because my favorite medium is television, a lot of my friends and many, many people I know, they write script after script. Sometimes these are assignments, sometimes not, but most of them don't get made. Now, I've been very lucky because I wrote for series television, and 95% of the scripts I've written have been shot. But now I'm able to basically make whatever I want to make, and I have my own studio, and so I'm able to gratify my artistic whims very, very easily, or at least well. And so for me, this is success because what's frustrating is to put your heart and soul into something and never be able to share it with the world. And that's not the problem I've had. So fortunately, and I've written novels. I can do that from a skill point of view, and it's emotionally rewarding in its way. But I would never be a full-time novelist. It's just far too isolated. So so there you are. That's a little bit of a twisty-turny answer, but there you go. So let's see who's next on that. So I guess Glenn, you're next if you want to go for it.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Great. So I know you can hear me. That's good, unless you're a really great lip reader. I'm here to push my career as an actor. Great. And I want to tell you about this film festival which is coming up. It's called the Rumgo Film Festival. I mean, this is the Yucca Valley Film Festival. The film is Rumgo, and it's based on the story of the monkey paw. And there's a very good, nice drawing of me right there. Okay,
cool.
So this has been winning a lot of awards lately, and it's just everything's been. I've won a couple awards myself as an actor, but it's also like best narrative short, best screenplay, best production design. Best director, best trailer, best cinematographer, best sound design, best original score, best thriller, best supporting actor, also from Rumgo, and best first time director. So these are just in like 3 different film festivals that we've done so far.
Wow. Congratulations. That's
Thank
great.
you. Thank you. Oh, by the way, I'm also looking for an agent for theatrical work.
Well,
yeah.
Well, I mean, again, people are stuck at home. So if you do a little homework and get specific about who you want to reach out to, now's a great time. Now, by the way, the Monkey's Paw, of course, is based on a short story by W.W. Jacobs. It's a very famous story. And interestingly enough, Jordan Peele's company name is Monkey's Paw. So you might want to reach out to Jordan Peele's company. Just, hey, we made a film based on this story that you clearly love. And, that would be fun. And
The Simpsons parodied it as well.
Yes. And
although you may not want to start, because agents look so much at the bottom line and how much money you are bringing in or about to bring in, you might want to start with a manager.
Yes, sure.
And just cross-check actors who have the kind of career you want.
Yeah.
And see who their managers are, because managers are much more likely to try and develop talent.
Yeah.
and for the long term. And they will, if you're going well, they'll help you find an agent.
Yes.
But agents and agencies, I mean, there's some very nice little agents, but they often don't have any access. They have less access than you do.
Right.
So the thing is to find out someone who has access, which means that are there people actually getting hired? And since you're not pulling in the bucks right now, and they can be fairly lazy, the thing would be, do some research about management companies and managers.
I have been doing well in commercials.
Oh,
That's
good.
great.
Well, that can help. That can help.
Yeah.
And so, do you have a commercial agent?
Yes, I do.
Have you asked them to recommend you to a theatrical agent?
I have not.
You should. That because that will work well, and particularly if you're bringing in the dollars, that's really important. And so, I would strongly urge you that you do that.
And make a list of everybody you've worked with, or
Yes.
anyone who might know you. But one of your assets, beyond the fact that you're making money in commercials, is who you know, so that an agent can call up and say, "Hey, I understand you know or worked with, or somebody recommended." In other words, the less work they have to go through because somebody knows somebody already.
Yes.
Your gold is your former relationships, where people would say, "Oh, he was easy to work with. He
Right.
was great. He was."
Also, many feature directors are also directing commercials because they can make as much with a single commercial as with a feature. And so always pay attention to who the directors are on the commercials you're doing, because they, because obviously,
I liked working with them.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, because again, no, go ahead, please.
No, I make them my Facebook friends, and
Good.
Great, good for you.
I can always find out what they're doing, because they're going to tell me,
yes,
what they're into, and then they can see what I'm doing. So
yes,
that's always good.
And it would also be very good idea for you to reach out to Blumhouse, because again, if you're in a horror piece, they might want to look at it. They might be interested in it. So, because the great thing about horror, as opposed to most films, is that horror movies can have a no-name cast and they do just fine. They don't need movie stars, and that means that you can actually be in a big hit movie where you aren't, beaten out by Brad Pitt or whomever.
Really. And the reason I thought about coming onto the table and telling you about this is because I know how you feel about Twilight Zone.
Yes.
And this is a 21-minute short film that just will remind you of the Twilight Zone.
Fun. Have fun. Yeah. Well,
that kind of ending,
That's great. No, it's, I mean, Serling was certainly a fan of those short story writers who could really have a great ending. He mentioned O. Henry quite often. And, so it's, he came from a literary tradition. And for those who don't know, I wrote the Twilight Zone Companion. I'm the world's expert on the Twilight Zone. Yeah. So, so buy the Blu-ray and you can hear me do commentaries on 52 episodes, which only leaves 104 to go. So I'll have to do those sometime when I have free time. But so anything else you need, Glenn?
No, but you can go on to Instagram and check out Rumgo Film or Marcus Thorington and see some clips. And Yucca Valley Film Festival.com, and you can get a ticket, and you can get like 2 weeks to watch or 1 week to watch everything that's there on the film festival.
That's cool.
Oh,
well,
great.
Cheers. Yay.
Thank you.
Good job. So great.
Excuse me, I'm going to leave because I got to get some sleep because
Sure.
I've got a call back for a commercial tomorrow.
Great. Good luck.
Play Santa Claus.
Wow, that's great. Oh, ho, ho. That's great.
All right.
That's great. Well, thanks a lot. So Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
There is, and I actually have it queued up this time. So we have another question from Mark Lungo.
Okay.
Who asks, any chance you'll film Knife Through the Veil?
I'd like to. And, we're now talking with the Serling Estate about doing Rod Serling's After Twilight, which is a part of the Showrunners Network that I'm creating. And that was a Knife Through the Veil, is a script that I wrote for the Twilight Zone when they brought it back in the late 80s. And a week before prep, the censors pulled the plug on it. It was going to be directed by Doug Hayes, who had directed Eye of the Beholder and The After Hours and Howling Man, many great Twilight Zone episodes. So it's a script I've always had great fondness for. so yeah, so it's something I'd very much like to do. It's definitely on the list. So thanks for asking. So now I guess Bonnie, I guess you're next on my screen.
Hey, Bonnie.
Go for it. There you
Hey,
go. Cool.
Bonnie Chomsky, composer, songwriter, anything music.
Great.
And so now I was talking with the filmmaker that we had a film put on hold when COVID hit. So now he's starting to talk about, I mean, he's still raising funding, but that film will go on. This person does film musicals and always a lot of dancing. He's an amazing tap dancer, writer, director. Yeah, amazing dancing in all of his films. And let's see, yeah, working on different projects, working a lot on the Musicians Union election. And if anyone knows anyone that might need food during this COVID time, the Musicians Union in Burbank is having a food drive where people can come get big boxes of food. Any union members, Burbank, actually it's for anyone. So if you know anyone that would be helpful. Yeah, just working on a lot of different things, and I am working on a lot with the Musicians Union election right now. So running for re-election. I've been a long time board member of Local 47 and a long time convention delegate. Probably forgetting other stuff, but I guess that's it for now. So.
Okay. Well, thanks. Welcome. Yay.
Thanks.
Yes, and we should listen to Bonnie's music. She's really good. Okay.
All right. Well, yeah, I know. And sometimes I say that I like writing live scores rather than synthesized scores, and so I've done a lot of film, musical theater, jazz, a lot of big band jazz. And actually, we're doing some big band things now. Oh, actually, I did forget to mention one thing, that there's a composers group I'm in, and now we're kind of collaborating and going to release a bunch of holiday type songs. So, working on that too. I knew there was something else. So, yeah, all kinds of fun stuff.
Okay, well, great. Well, welcome. Mark?
Coming.
Okay, it's okay.
What's
Should we go on to the next Mr. Sci-Fi?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Well, there really isn't another question, but there is an update to the Neil Webb question.
Sure.
About Alexander Key.
Yes.
Apparently, he was a children's book author. But he did write Escape to Witch Mountain.
Okay, I see. So yeah, I got it. Thanks for that clarification. Okay, cool. So now we will move on, I guess, to Kevin.
Hey,
so
Kevin.
Go for it, Kevin.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good.
Good. So I'm Kevin Mappy, composer and songwriter.
Great.
So I didn't have a lot to do, not a lot of things to ask this time. Mostly I've just been working on my demo that I was telling you about last week with where I'm trying to get into the kids programming genre.
Great.
And so I'm writing, I've written several songs that are in the right down that alley.
Great.
As close as possible, production wise. And now I'm getting vocalists to sing on top of the tracks.
Great.
And it's fun. It's so much fun to have really talented people bring your stuff to life.
Yes.
This one young lady that sent her tracks in today, or yesterday and today, just sounds so amazing. It's just it just brings a smile to my face.
That's great.
Because it's just cute and whatnot. So anyway, that's it. There's not much for me to say, but I'm just excited about what's going on.
That's great.
For my demos and stuff. So
Great. Well, 3 cheers. Yay.
Well, thanks.
Excellent. Yay. So another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam, or?
Yes, we have a question from Scott. Another question from Scott Baker.
Thanks, Scott.
Says, I taught English at a school where a Christian colleague refused to grade Harry Potter book reports. She got fired.
Good.
What could I have said to her about fiction to help save her job?
You could have said, take the stick out of your ass. I don't know. I mean, Jesus, I don't know. I mean, it's like you could have said to her, Jesus was all about love and not about condemnation. And he hasn't sent J.K. Rowling to hell, so it's probably fine to have people read these books. I mean, it's difficult because anytime someone is dogmatic, any kind of dogma, it makes it very hard to give them good advice. You could suggest to her that you could have suggested to her that she read Fahrenheit 451 and understand that a book is never the enemy. The suppression of books is the enemy. So that's what I would have suggested, so there you go. So, okay, great. So now it's Marc Agushowitz, the wonderful Marc Agushowitz, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, how's everybody doing?
Great.
Good. Just don't turn on the news. I kept off for 2 seconds and my wife saw like, oh my God, this is happening, that's happening. Sort of like, I guess Bank of America is going down. And so nobody's getting their EDD checks, which means millions of people are right now wondering how they're going to pay their bills.
Wow.
So fun world.
Yes.
What a time to need to escape in the movies. It's the perfect thing to do. That's why I love doing it, is especially when you're down or depressed, you just go into somebody else's world and not worry about it for a couple of hours. Anyway, my name is Marc. I am an editor, as everybody knows. I've been busy the last couple of weeks. Today I was really, really busy trying to get something that was due tomorrow done, and I'll probably be working a little bit on that after this meeting. But right now, busy is good, and we can't frown on being busy. As I talked about last week, I am moving forward in creating a new website / podcast / movie kind of forum, I guess, because we're going to try and put together our Zoom meetings that are just people talking about their favorite movies and stuff to include in this whole entire thing. So what was once just a website that I was going to work on every once in a while has become an entity, and I'm actually really excited about it.
Great.
So that's going to be a lot of fun. I will hit on something that David Bartlett was talking about earlier, because he was talking about Beta getting into the master's program, and maybe there was a little tiny piece of the fact that he knew the guy that could have helped her.
Yes.
And I have had that happen to me where I went there was a werewolf movie I was making a while back that I've talked about on this, it exploded and blah, blah, blah. But when we went in looking for effects people, we went into a place called Creature Effects, and they do a lot of horses, and they do a lot of big budget movies when it comes to horses and stuff. And we were talking about werewolf, and it looked like the price was going to just be way too high for us. But I took the guy's business card, I brought it home, and so the business card's sitting on my desk, and my friend Richard, who was my co-host on Talking Apes for 6 years, comes in, and he used to work at Full Moon Entertainment, and he recognized the guy's name. And he says, next time you go in there, mention me and tell him that I said hi. And I went in and I said hi. We started talking about Richard, all confirmed stories, because I told Richard what he had to say. And all of a sudden, the price went down on the effects because he really liked Richard, and I guess he felt like, hey man, he's friends with Richard, we can do him some favors.
Yeah.
So, don't be scared to utilize your connections, but always, the lesson I get out of something like this is never leave anybody in a bad way, because you never know how to be able to help you. Even if you had a bad time with them, or you guys just didn't click, at least make sure you leave friendly, because you never know how you might be able to help each other.
Yes. And again, never badmouth people, never gossip. I mean, the only time to speak negatively of someone is if someone calls you and they're considering hiring that person and they were a nightmare to work with. Then you can say to that person, this has to remain confidential, and again, don't say it in a caustic way, but just be honest. And, and the other thing that's super important is, if you know someone who knows somebody famous, before you use their name, clear it with them, because people have done that with me where they haven't cleared it, and that's never good. That's never good. And so always make sure it's okay to do that, because it can damage relationships if you're not careful. So
there's only ever been one person that I've ever badmouthed after working, and I don't actually badmouth them. What I say is, somebody comes to me and says, I'm thinking about working with this person. I just say, just to make you aware, this is the experience I had.
Yes.
And I also don't ever tell them, don't tell that person, because I don't talk behind people's backs.
Yes.
So if they want to go tell that person, and that person wants to call me, I'll say, this is why I said it.
Yeah. Or when they ask you about someone, you can say, oh, has that person come back from hell? You know, and that's another way of doing it. But no, but you know.
But I do believe, like, you know, you never know what that little thing could help, you know. I mean, for all we know, when she went into, when Vita went in, and she mentioned David Bartlett, you might have said, oh, if she's working for David Bartlett, and David Bartlett likes her, she must be, you know, it elevates. If they like David, then it elevates who she is, because she's in his presence, and she's working with him, and she's learning from him.
Yes.
And so I always kind of think to myself, never ever, always leave on good terms.
Yes.
So you know, David's got good stories, but I think that was the learning one that I think people could learn from.
Yes.
From right. So anyway, so so I'm an editor working, still waiting for this effect from this effects guy, and I badmouth him, but none of you would know his name, so get back off me in that way. I'm starting to think now that it's not that he's being lazy or anything. I think because of COVID, something's going on.
Yeah.
Personal, and he just doesn't want to talk about it, because he went from being the greatest effects person to being very slow. So
yes.
And his work is good. So I'm still waiting for that to lock my short, because it's just one shot now. I've gotten everything else. Everything else is in.
Huh.
Just one shot.
Muzzle top.
And so then I can go on to color correction, and Earl can start working on music and sound.
Great.
To kind of move forward with that. And then the holidays are moving forward. I usually do Santa in December. I don't know if I'm going to be doing that this year, because the company that I usually do it for, they're booking a lot of online Santas, because that's the only way you can do it. And I think that the guy who runs the company, because he's a really great Santa, is just going to take most of that work. So I'm a little worried about December. So if anybody knows anyone who needs an editor, here I am.
Cool.
Good to go. I got references. I need work. I'll bust my butt for anybody who needs it. Other than that, I think that's it.
Okay. Yay. 3 cheers.
If you ever need for a Mr. Sci-Fi question, I've got a million of them.
Oh yeah,
so.
Tell me.
You got
ask
plenty
me
tonight.
No, ask me one. If you have one, ask me. Go ahead, please.
You know, let me think, because I didn't expect you to come back to me like that. But if you come back,
we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you. The one thing I assume you know, Mark, is a few years ago, they did a Planet of the Apes box set, and they did a documentary as part of that. I'm in that documentary because, of course, Rod Serling, as you know, co-wrote Planet of the Apes. So there's actually a documentary with me talking about that. And you know, so that's pretty fun. So okay, so Adam, another Mr. Sci-Fi question then.
And Mark, if you're looking for Santa work as well, you can check out Jingle Ring.
Okay. Great.
I don't think they require real bearded Santas, but I mean there are a lot of real bearded Santas.
Yeah.
They're
and you've got a month.
Saying there's a lot of demand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, since you said that tonight, I'm definitely going to check them out. The only conflict I have is I don't have a Santa suit. I generally use my friend's Santa suit.
Yes.
Although we're really close, he might, so I can make a little extra money in December, he might actually just say, go ahead and use it, Mark.
Yeah. Yeah. And you only need the top
I'll
part.
definitely check it out.
Yeah, you only need the top part. And so, you know, but I would wear pants nevertheless. It was very funny. There's a show called Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me on NPR that I listen to each week. It's very, very funny. And they've started a new podcast where they have like bits that were like cut for time and extra jokes and so forth. So they were talking about the fact that there actually is an offer. They've been trying to liaison with department store Santas to get information out about the COVID vaccine when it comes out, and they were going to make department store Santas get the vaccine first, and then they would talk to the kids about getting their shots and so forth. And so in Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, they were talking about that. It's a true story. And then they were saying that they actually consulted with the Bearded Santa organization. These are Santas who are Santas all year round. And so then the host of the show said, and you know where they're listed, for the ones who are all Santa all year round, they're listed in the sex offender registry.
Can I say one thing about, you had a Mr. Sci-Fi question earlier about,
Yes.
or you talked about Leviathan.
Yes.
And I just want to let people know, because I've seen the movie twice, actually.
Mhm.
It's not a great movie,
No.
but compared to most of the Alien ripoffs,
Yes.
it's actually pretty good. So
Yes.
don't scare people away from it. I think if they're in the mood for a really good B movie, it's worth checking out.
And it has a really good cast. I mean, Richard Crenna and Peter Weller and, you know, so on and so forth. So it was, you know,
And a good creature too.
very, very good creature effects. Well, Stan Winston was, of course, one of the greats. And so, you know, yeah, absolutely. It's worth checking out. It's on Netflix. No, it's on Amazon Prime. It's either Netflix or Amazon Prime, one of them, for free. I think Netflix. And so it's worth checking out, as long as you don't mistake it with the Russian film with the same title, Leviathan, which is a totally different different kind of movie. So, okay, so let's see.
We do have a Mr. Sci-Fi
Yes,
question.
go for it. You bet.
From a question I had apparently skipped from Scott Gamble.
Great. Hi, Scott.
And the question is, did you pick up any props from the recent Hollywood auctions for your collection or for use in Space Command?
There's some things. There were some things in that collection that I was considering. There's one, Profiles in History is having an auction now, and the Prop Store is having an auction in December. The thing that I'm very interested in at the Prop Store auction is it's 20 pages of what are called Ridleygrams. They're storyboards drawn by Ridley Scott for Prometheus, and that's very appealing. There's a couple of spacesuits that are interesting. There's a bunch of stuff, but I actually made a list today for David Bartlett of the spacesuits we own, because we want to find out those sizes moving forward, because we're going to be doing scenes with actors in spacesuits. So I own 10 spacesuits. Okay, so for those who don't know, there's 2 of them. Here, I'll see if I can turn the others. Yeah, there's 2 of them up there. Those are
has Dave Edison's name on it.
yeah, well, one of them was a real spacesuit that my mother bought me when I was 12. It was also used in the Twilight Zone episode, The Parallel. The other is a Tholian Webb spacesuit from the Star Trek episode we did with George Takei. Beyond that, we have 3 spacesuits from Cloverfield Paradox, I think 2 with helmets and 1 without. We have a spacesuit that was used on the Carol Burnett show that Bob Mackie designed, and we have a spacesuit from Jane the Virgin, oddly enough, which doesn't have a space helmet, but it's really cool. We had a spacesuit contest, and so we've got a spacesuit from the contest winner that he made entirely with things from Home Depot. I just got a spacesuit that was used in The Outer Limits, the original Outer Limits, and it was used in a terrific episode of The Twilight Zone called Death Ship that Richard Matheson wrote, one of my favorites. And then I have a salvage suit from Aliens that Ethan McDowell wore in the pandemic episode of Space Command, and it's in the opening of the movie Aliens. It's a really cool suit, and so that's 10. But that's.
Do you have anything that Jane Fonda wore?
Not yet, but you never know. You never know. But there's a lot of stuff floating out there. You know, just have to kind of be a little cautious not to overspend. You know, but I love spacesuits. I always have. And in fact, there's a photo of me at age 15 in that real spacesuit that my mom got me. So I was showing someone that today. So Brian, I guess you're next. Brian Hassick.
Hi, Brian Hassick, filmmaker, writer. I've been spending the last few weeks actually kind of script doctoring for someone else. It started as just, can you look this over, and turned into very detailed and time consuming. So I've been putting off a lot of stuff, including my own stuff, but that's all done this week. And then Tuesday, where I had all my writing, all my storyboard resources, and some of my art that I've been doing the last 2 months, my computer decided to crash.
Yeah.
I got lucky though, because it was the power supply, so I was able to pretty much get all the files back.
Good. Back them
I
up.
guess that's one question for Mark or Dave or anyone that any good external cloud-based, what's the best kind of backup? But
yeah, Dave, do you have an opinion?
Yeah, Google Drive.
It's just
That's my only one I endorse right now. I hated those things. In general, I would never use them. I had a friend that kept all of his financials of his company on a cloud, and I'm like, dude, this is just it's somewhere in Denver, someone could hack it, blah, blah, blah. I like Google Drive. Now, as a backup for storing files for your own personal backups, I would not trust that. But it works very well for an ongoing work flow and a place to put files to help other people get them back and forth. Now, you can get the G-RAID, the dual G-RAID drives that are large, that are a little more expensive, are the most reliable ones that I've used. But just the other day, we had one of those crash. So if you're going to have it be a backup, you got to have a redundant backup behind it.
Right.
And I have a RAID backup drive and a second one.
Yep.
But I formatted them wrong. So one of them was not actually a RAID. It was actually 2 separate drives.
Wow.
Wow.
You can't do that. Yeah.
No.
So the trick is to get them formatted right to begin with, obviously. But the trick is to make sure that you also don't run on them for more than about 4 years.
Right.
Because they have about 5-year shelf life, and then they will start to drop off one by one. So just you're really you're playing with fire if you let backup drives sit longer than 5 years.
Wow.
Well, that was what's funny. The computer was almost 12 years old now. That I'm surprised it lasts this long. But usually not that bad about backing stuff up. But literally,
it happens. The really good IBM computers, and I'm dating myself, the good PCs are very reliable. The more expensive Macs are very reliable. They're professional gear. So you can trust them to a point. But again, even the SSD drives, those are still new technology. They don't crash because they don't have moving parts, but they still have electrical parts, electronic parts. So they're sorted out. I mean, they're more expensive, but they're more reliable, and they're a lot faster.
Yeah.
Well, I was able to recover it only because I had a 20-year-old computer that still had the SATA cables.
Yeah, great. And Dave, what were you going to say?
There's also fire, theft, earthquake. There's a lot of things, floods. There's a lot of things that can damage drives.
Locusts, rain.
Things that are important with Space Command. I've got it on several drives, and David Bartlett has a copy, and Marc has a copy, and one of them might know where that copy is.
One of them, yes. But
you got, if possible, send something very important out of state.
Yes, and but it's very
What I normally do,
I'm sorry.
I always tell my clients to have double backups. But if it's just personal stuff, like my personal stuff, I have one backup of it. But you have to be I agree with David. Like every 2 years, I try to get either a new drive or at least move it off of a drive and then reformat the drive before I bring it back on, because that sometimes will help your drives last a little bit longer. But if you go into the cloud, which is something I personally don't like because people can hack into it, people can steal it. You have no control over the quality, like ones if their drive goes down.
Because they slow the computer down, and same thing with Gmail, because I'm less worried about someone stealing the stuff than whether my computer's performance is, because these aren't the greatest machine.
I mean, the main thing, as Dave Edison was saying, is absolutely have a backup that's in a physical space that's different from where you are. Because, one friend of mine, he had his backup files in a fire safe computer. I'm sorry, like a fire safe, that's supposed to protect everything from fire. And he had a fire at his place, and he opened up the safe afterwards, and everything inside of it had melted. And so even though it was a fire safe, it didn't protect his stuff. So really be super careful with all of that. And I mean, it's interesting because, film is a fairly stable medium, physical film. And now that we're at digital, no one knows how long that stuff's going to last at all. And so it's a very dicey medium. I can understand why certain filmmakers want to shoot exclusively on film, simply because, after they got safety film, it lasted like 100 years or more. But as opposed to the original non-safety film that would, go to basically gum, nitrate stock would just totally deteriorate after, a few decades. But yeah.
For my years at Fox, that scared me when they started putting all their mastering in files, because even though they've got backup drives in the desert,
that
could in a minute be gone.
Yeah, so one has to be really, really careful with that. The funny thing is, I'll tell you something funny. I started as a writer when we worked on typewriters, Selectrics, and then it switched over to computers. But because we all had to get K-Pro 2s and start writing scripts on K-Pro 2s with these big 5-inch floppies, well, computers have changed so much since the beginning of my career, and the formats have changed so much that it's the paper copies that basically are the safety copies, because the old computers, you can't read those files. And so we go back. So with everything we write, we print out paper copies and file them, because then if we can't access the computer file, we can make it, we can at least, read the hard copy. And so that's, so in our computerized age, it's actually still paper that works. So pretty hilarious.
I've got a cheap external drive that reads those 3 1/4 inch, whatever, 3.5 inch floppies.
Yes, hilarious.
Once in a while, I need a file that's back on those.
Yeah,
they like 1.44 megs.
Yes.
The person who I was helping with the writing, they actually asked me about that because I'm gonna help them get some files from their floppy disks.
But one thing I will say, Brian, is it's very important if one is a writer to not let other people's needs eat up all your time. Okay, just because one has expertise doesn't mean that you have to be at everyone's beck and call. And
this is definitely not a normal thing for me.
No.
Yeah, I have so much of my own stuff going on, but it has been a good experience. Just my own writing, like getting me back into it.
Yes.
But
make sure you stay up to date with everything too. Because see this little disc here. If anybody has a way I can get stuff off of this, I have scripts on drive. Yes, I have a short script on one of these. I got like 5 of them. I don't know which one. That I wanted to revisit.
Oh.
You have a zip drive? Because I wanted to revisit it, and for the last year, I have not been able to get access to the script. So make sure you stay up to date with whatever. Make sure your files are on a drive you can access.
And so Brian,
did you say you had a zip drive?
Yeah, I think I have a zip drive.
Yeah, but let's
definitely need to.
Yeah, but we can.
Incidentally, Brian, I just got done working for 3 months as doctoring someone else's script. Okay. On this laptop right now that I'm talking to you at, I have like 20 versions of that script. Okay. Now I know it was a learning experience for me, and I did make a very little money on it. But there was a time. The time did come when I did tell the guy, "There's I cannot do any more for you.
Right.
That's the most I can do for this script."
Yeah, and so
I've already got the favor I'm going to catch in lined up.
Right.
Agreed to. So,
great.
Yeah.
So is there anything you need, Brian, beyond what we've been discussing?
No, just great to have one computer working and see some people.
Yes. Okay. Well, great. Cheers. Okay, great. So another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam.
Oh, I forgot I still have my mic still on.
Well, there you go.
Yes, we do have another Mr. Sci-Fi question from Kevin Scott 76.
Hi, Kevin.
And he asks, have y'all read Doris Pizurcha's?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that the spelling?
Yeah.
Sci-fi writings like Spaceling and other female sci-fi writers.
I read her stuff a long time ago, but don't really have much of a memory of it. I've read most of the major female science fiction writers, but some of them I like and some of them I don't like. Carol M. Schwiller I respected, but she was kind of strange, and Kate Wilhelm I could never get into, even though she was one of my teachers at Clarion. Andre Norton I just never really kind of connected with, even though I respected her body of work. Octavia Butler I knew, and I liked Kindred. I thought that was a very, very good book. And some of the writers working now, there's one I met, I can't remember her name, but she wrote a book called 6 Wakes that I liked very much. And gosh, I know most of the science fiction writers working now. And also I'm reading Lee Brackett, who was a female science fiction writer from the 30s on. She was also, oddly enough and unusually enough, she was a screenwriter. She co-wrote with William Faulkner the screenplay for The Big Sleep for Howard Hawks, based on the Raymond Chandler novel. And she wrote a number of John Wayne movies. And Ray Bradbury thought she was wasting her time, but she liked going between paid screenwriting gigs. She also was a writer credited on Empire Strikes Back. That was her last credit. But she's a very solid writer. So I'm reading one of her short stories. I bought a book of her short stories, and I'm kind of reading it now. It's over there somewhere. But there's a number of very, back in the 30s through the 60s into the 70s, most female science fiction writers wrote under pseudonyms that were assumed to be male. So C.L. Moore was one of those, Lee Brackett, of course, and Andre Norton, etc. Well, the most interesting. Yes, D.C. Fontana. The most interesting pseudonym of any female science fiction writer was James Tiptree Jr., who turned out to be Alice Sheldon. And the reason she was using a pseudonym was she was working for the CIA, and she didn't want anyone to know that she was a science fiction writer. And there was a big mystery as to who James Tiptree Jr. was, and people actually camped out at the P.O. box to see if they could spot who that was. And there's this big question as to whether it was a male or a female writer. Many famous science fiction writers said, oh, no, it has to be a man. And then, of course, she revealed herself, I think, once she retired, and she was an amazing writer. But yeah, so that was one of the more interesting ones. This was during the 1970s. And but there's a lot of great female science fiction writers as well as males, and and I've kind of kept up with all that stuff over the years, So yeah, so let's see. So I guess Heidi, you're next. Go for it.
Oh, hello. My name is Heidi Miro. I am a logger, transcriber, and production assistant. So my current job is transcribing, and currently I've been typing what a hunter has been doing, like skinning animals and feeding his dogs, and it's both hilarious and kind of cringy for me, because I'm not used to seeing, graphic things like that. So anyway, I'm just doing my job typing the words, but not really looking at the video.
Yeah.
But quite amazing how people can film those types of scenes and not have a cringe reaction.
Yeah. There's people who are like, I don't know. I mean, I very studiously avoid things I don't want to see, and because once it's in your head, it's very hard to get it out of your head, and and again, I think for all of us, it's very important that we have a sense of what our larger goal is and really work toward that, so that we don't have to do anything in our life that we don't want to do. And, so is there anything you need, Heidi?
Oh, no need. I'm just here for support.
Okay, great. Well, 3 cheers. Good to see you. And when you said you were a logger, I was going to say, well, I really admire you taking that chainsaw to those pine trees and driving the lumber trucks, and it's you have many talents. So, but I didn't say that joke. So there you go. I have restraint. And
She sleeps all night and she works all day.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then anyway. Okay. So
the thing of jokes, Judith.
Oh, God.
Judith Smiley, who isn't with us today, she caught a cold and could
dear.
hardly talk.
Oh no.
But she gave me a very good joke.
Okay.
That I told Mark, and it was.
When is a fetus viable?
Yeah. The joke is it's a Jewish joke.
Yes.
It's a Jewish joke.
When
is a fetus viable? When it attends law school.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. When is a child viable?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. So okay, cool. So another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam.
Yes, let's. That was funny.
Yeah, it's a good joke. You can,
and only when they attend law school.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly.
Or becomes a doctor.
Yes, of course. There you go. Yeah, good.
So we have a question from Shane Reeves, who asked, "What are your thoughts on The Expanse books or show?"
I've read all of the books, and I've watched all of the seasons of The Expanse. My friends Marc Ferguson and Huck Ostby, whom I'm creating a series with right now, they created and run that show with Narain Shankar, whom I also know from Star Trek. And I like the books better, but the problem is that the writers of the novel, it's 2 writers writing under a single pseudonym, they started in a certain direction in the novels, and then they got on staff on the TV show, and I think that changed their view of their own characters, because the actor who plays the lead male is very weak as an actor, in my opinion, and so they started de-emphasizing him as a character in the later novels, and emphasizing Naomi Nagata, who's played by a very, very strong actress. And but still, David Strathern's in The Expanse. He's a terrific actor. He's terrific in I think season 3, and Kara G, who plays another role in The Expanse, is again just terrific. And there's a lot to appreciate in the show. It's funny because they have a lot of visual effects, and when I showed Marc Fergus the first hour of Space Command, he said, "God, I wish we could get that much bang for the buck." So that was nice. And I like both. I like the show and the novels. Some of the novels I like better than others. And the fourth season, the most recent season of The Expanse, I didn't think was that great, simply because it's just like on a planet, and I think they're following the novels a little too closely, because when it's one of the weaker novels, they still are kind of shooting that stuff. But even so, it's still a very interesting show, and if anyone's a science fiction fan and hasn't seen it, I would recommend that they watch it. And the novels are fun. I would read them on the treadmill at the gym back when I was running on a treadmill at the gym rather than running in the park, thanks to COVID. So but yeah, I can recommend both the books and the TV show. So let's see. So David Goldenholtz, you're next.
All right. You can hear me.
Yes.
Yay.
All right. So nothing really new. Just wanted to say hi. And I'm staying dry from the hurricane that passed through.
Wow.
Yeah,
Good.
It was a little wet, and a couple feet of water that just completely covered all of Florida.
Wow.
Wow.
Yes. I'm sure you heard all about it. It was great.
Were you in any scary situations yourself when it hit?
No, but there were a few kayaks floating by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
I managed to stay dry.
Wow.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I've been 2 weeks ago, I got done with, I wasn't here because I was doing a Halloween thing.
Huh.
Oh.
And that's why I wasn't here, because I was finishing up doing a Halloween set. I told you guys that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I wasn't here.
Cool.
And then, yeah, so I'm just kind of here. Same reason, for support.
Great.
All that.
Great. Well, cool. Well, it's good to see you as always. Interesting fact, here in this hemisphere, they're called hurricanes. In the other hemisphere, the Asian hemisphere, I think it's the southern hemisphere, they're called cyclones. Interestingly enough, they have a different name. That's why you never hear of a hurricane hitting Malaysia, for instance. So, interesting fact. So there you go. And and etc. Anything else you need, David?
Yes.
Aha.
There's one more note about that, Mark. In the Indian Ocean, they're called typhoons.
That's right. Typhoons, not cyclones.
Typhoons.
There you go. Great.
I was
yes.
going to ask you about that.
Typhoon.
Cyclone is the South Pacific.
There you go. Well, this is great.
There's three of them.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Okay. So what do you need, David?
So since Mark doesn't have the question for you yet.
Yes.
I'll ask the question for Mark.
Sure.
About the sci-fi.
Anytime, just so you know.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, David.
Do you have a orange spacesuit?
No, I don't, but I love one. I'd love one. Why do you ask?
Because why not?
Yeah, no, I would love one. There was one that was very, very tempting, but I didn't get it. And it's funny.
One, right, on your shelf?
What?
One of the ones on your shelf? Isn't one of the ones on your shelf
orange?
On the miniature one, yeah.
That doesn't count.
No, it doesn't count. But the when I was a kid, they advertised a spacesuit in Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. It didn't have a helmet, but it was like a pressure suit. And I so wanted that. And it was a black and white photo. And I always envisioned it as being orange, but I think in reality it was green. But if anyone ever finds one of those, I would love to have one of those just for nostalgia's sake. And they never come up on eBay. I've never seen one. And but those were I think it was $7. And for a kid, of course, $7 was a fair amount back when I was a kid. So that one got away. But no, spacesuits are so cool. And I think if you ask me what my two favorite spacesuits are, I would say the one from Alien, that great one that Mobius designed, and 2001: A Space Odyssey. Those are I think my two favorites. They're both just spectacular. So okay, so I guess Mark, and you have a Mr. Sci-Fi question, Mark Gushowitz?
I do. If it's too complicated, let me know.
No, go for it.
It has something to do with something I just watched.
Sure.
You're the big Twilight Zone guy.
That's what they tell me.
I was just watching something on Shudder called Cursed Films, and they talked about the Twilight Zone and the big incident that happened on the Twilight Zone with Vic Morrow and the 2 kids.
Yes.
And it's just a really horrifying thing, and I know how it affected some of the filmmakers, and you can see it in some of the segments. But my curiosity after watching this is, if you know anything, since you know all this Twilight Zone stuff, is how after that happened, they still allowed that film to be completed.
Okay, great. Because I was actually there, not that night of the shooting, but I actually was. They consulted with me on the Twilight Zone film, and Kick the Can. Interestingly enough, the reason they did Kick the Can was that Steven Spielberg wanted to do one about old people. He was considering doing an episode called The Trade-Ins, and I said, well, if he wants to do an episode about old people, has he seen Kick the Can? And they said, well, he's rejected it. He saw it years ago. So I drove home and got my VHS tape of Kick the Can, and I brought it, and I said he should watch it again. And he watched it again, and he decided to do Kick the Can. And so that was my contribution. They also gave out the Twilight Zone Companion as a prize, and they had me autograph, I think, 50 copies or something. But the script was very different from the film as they released it, because they didn't have any of the Vietnam stuff in the Vic Morrow segment. They totally excised that. It was just, and Spielberg just distanced himself hugely from that whole thing, because even though he was a producer on the film, they closed ranks. They did not want him to be, brought under scrutiny. So it was John Landis took the hit because he was the director. So he was actually put on trial, but because he had, money, he was able to get off. A lot of people thought he should have gone to prison. But he, because he had a reputation for being taking risks that he shouldn't have. He was a very, very successful comedy director before that. He directed Blues Brothers and many other films. And I actually saw the first film he ever directed called Schlock, which is shown at FilmCon when I was a teenager, and he was actually there premiering it. He was a kid at the time, like he must have been like 20 or something. And Schlock was this sort of like ape-like creature, and it was both designed and played by Rick Baker, which is kind of an interesting little piece of trivia. But the Twilight Zone film, yeah, I mean, the Nightmare at 20,000 Feet they did with John Lithgow was certainly interesting, but not nearly as good as the original one with Shatner at all. So that's some of it. But they were all.
I was just kind of curious because it just seemed like after that happened, and you hear the behind the scenes. And I actually think I remember the Vietnam part where they're in the water actually being in the movie. If I'm wrong,
it's not. It's not.
According to the guy, one of the guys interviewed, they used real bullets at that point.
No,
it just seemed like
that's bullshit.
So dangerous.
No. It's totally bullshit. It's totally bullshit. First of all, there's no Vietnam.
With the Vic Morrow death, I mean, you figure you shut down production.
No, what happened was they shut down production on that segment, of course, and there was a big investigation. But then they had the footage of the episode. They didn't, it was too expensive a production really for them to just bail on it. And they'd already, I think, shot a lot, Spielberg segment and George Miller's and Joe Dante's. And, so what they did was they re-edited it extensively. They kept saying, well, this is the tribute to Vic Morrow. It's his last role, which I think is, questionable. But the reason you might have a mental image of some of that footage is they did show some of that footage on the news at the time, like of the accident, but they weren't using real bullets. That's totally nonsensical. No, what happened was, I think it was that there was an explosion and there was a camera helicopter, and then there were helicopters in the scene as Vietnam era helicopters, but then there was a camera shooting it, and a barrel. One of the explosions, it threw a barrel up into the air and it hit the rotor, and that's what caused the helicopter to crash. And sadly, Vic Morrow was carrying the 2 children at that moment, and so it killed him and killed the 2 kids. Terrible, really terrible, and totally they were in violation of child labor laws. There's no way those kids should have been on any set with pyrotechnics ever, and so that was.
It's a real interesting documentary, and they show the footage just to warn people
Terrible.
who may want to check it out. They
Terrible.
actually show the footage. And
Yeah.
it's just horrifying. It's just
Sure.
when after watching it to me, it was like, God, they should have shut that set down, or they
Yeah.
should have taken that segment completely out.
Yes, that's what I would have done if it were me. I would have just said, look, this is not going to see the light of day. I would have had the other ones and, maybe plugged it with a fourth one to fill out the time or something. But yeah, very problematic.
And I love the George Miller Nightmare on 20,000 Feet. I think it's just as good as the Shatner. They're very different.
Yeah, but we
Didn't
need
they expand it to Nightmare at 23,000,
50.
30,000 feet?
Yeah, something like that. But yeah.
Well, that was for the remake.
Anyway.
The more modern remake.
Yeah, but
they changed
anyway.
I know one of the passengers in that scene. It's one of his claims to fame.
Well, there you go. Yeah, well, there you go. Okay, enough of this. So
They did a nice tribute to it when William Shatner guested on
Yes.
Third Rock from the Sun. They made a reference to it.
Yeah.
My favorite television moment, but I think Mark wants to move on.
yeah, we should move on. So Gino, I think it's your turn.
Hey, yeah, hi folks. Okay. First off, why don't we all see Thane wake up?
No, let him get his rest. He needs his
Oh,
rest.
I know.
Yeah.
It just it had to sound good.
Yeah, no, it's an acting
yeah.
exercise.
Yeah, I see some people on here I don't know, but,
Yeah.
or a couple. So, sorry. Hi, Gino, kick-ass actor, filmmaker, comedian. I'm available for table reads, and if you're casting something and I would fit the specs for any character, I'd be honored to read for you.
Great.
Yeah. Going back, I've been on a Twilight Zone binge with you too, so I had this coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on the Purple Testament.
Yes.
At the end, when they go, he has come to open the Purple Testament of bleeding war.
Yes.
Can you tell me what that means?
I think it's Shakespeare, but I can't recall it at this remove. It's the main thing about that episode is Serling was a paratrooper. He fought in the jungles. He was almost killed. I mean, it's one of the most authentic things ever written about war. It's so, you just feel the reality of that world. And it has, it's just a great episode. It's a great episode. William Reynolds starred in it with Dick York, and Leonard Nimoy's in it, I think. It's either that one or Quality of Mercy. Maybe Quality of Mercy has a little cameo, and but it's just a terrific piece of work. And Serling certainly felt it very, very strongly. So I'm a big fan of that episode. So let's see. So anything else, Gino?
I take it with regards to that Vic Morrow accident.
Mhm.
I can YouTube it and pull it up.
Yeah, but
No
yeah.
Gory, I would like to see it.
Yeah, it's terrible. And but yeah, absolutely. So, and for those who don't know, Vic Morrow was an actor in a lot of things. He starred in the TV show Combat, and just a solid guy, and really a tragedy that he was killed and the two kids were killed. So okay, so now is anything else, Gino?
No, I'm good. Thanks,
Okay,
Mark.
cheers. So Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes, we've got another question from Kevin Scott, 76, who says, Isaac Asimov wrote of a future society where nobody touches each other using video screens, etc.
Yes.
Very prophetic. Have you all thought of that?
Yes, but also the great science fiction story that kind of speaks to this is, and amazingly, because one thing I used to say was that no one predicted the internet. And then I found that there was a short story called The Machine Stops. And I believe it was written in 1909 by E.M. Forster. And he was not a science fiction writer generally. He wrote, things like Room with a View. And yet it's about a future society where everyone lives in their own little cubicle and they're joined by video screens. And it's just so prophetic. It's amazing. And it's about people reaching out to thousands via the screens. And you can talk to anyone in the world, but the people are just kind of pale and they don't go outside. And it's an amazing story. I highly recommend it. You can get it on Audible or to listen to, or you can read it on, but it's really great. It's a great story. So that's the one that really resonates in those terms. If you want to really have a chuckle, if there's a book you want to read that just for the times we're living through, check out, there's a guy named Daniel Defoe. He wrote Robinson Crusoe, and he wrote a book called A Journal of the Plague Year, which was about the bubonic plague epidemic in England, which happened when I think it happened before he was born, but there were still a lot of people who were survivors of that alive when he was an adult. And it's an amazing but harrowing book. But if you'd like to know what other pandemics were like, read that. It's really a great piece of work. So let's see. So Lydia, is Lydia there, or did you want to check in, or are you just, nope, you're not there? Or Carol Francis, would you like to check in if you're there?
Carol?
I don't think Carol has
No.
mic attached.
No. So I guess that means it's Elaine. Elaine, wonderful Elaine. Go for it, Elaine.
Yeah, just plugging away with my fellow space commanders, and trying to figure out the best way to shoot during COVID. Especially since some of our actors are planted in Georgia right now.
Yes,
fingers
in
crossed
Atlanta.
for that race. Yes.
Yeah.
And so Marc is trying to get something off the ground with David, a thing called Ashes.
That's one of Elaine's features, and it's a really great science fiction script,
which is really about different kinds of courage. So right now we're just poking around, looking towards setting up an audition
for two of the actors.
For two of the actors
two of the
to see how
leads.
they play. So
yeah,
very, very challenging roles.
It's neat.
And just space commanding it. So I guess that's it for me.
Well, and your pilot Harbor is being read by an executive at Endemol Shine, which is a big production company, and Subversive is being read by Nick Betts, who has a production company in the UK, and he formerly, for like 20 years or more, was an executive with BBC, so he's very connected. And so that's going on. So it's pretty exciting. And yay, Elaine! Cheers! Excellent. So is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes, I have one more Mr. Sci-Fi question for you.
Great.
From Yul Adamus.
Thanks.
Who says, how can the sci-fi community bridge the gap from story to reality, making the world we live in more like the worlds in story?
I think it's what we're doing with Space Command. You create a future and you show people how they can rise to their best selves. You say the future is hopeful, there's possibility. It's exactly what Star Trek did when I was a kid. I think you have to figure out how you can inspire people, but it's not about speechifying. It's not about rose-colored glasses or a phony bullshit kind of thing. It's basically saying there's courage in the world. You can reach across with compassion. You can make a better world through kindness and compassion and action. And so that's what we're doing with Space Command and with a lot of things we write. And that's how you do it. I mean, people get inspired. A lot of people were inspired by Star Trek to become scientists and teachers and good parents and all sorts of stuff. So I think the main thing is take responsibility for your writing and say, what am I putting out into the world? What am I creating? Is it doing good in the world, or is it just making things worse? And I think a lot of writers totally
abrogate.
Yeah, they basically say, well, I don't have responsibility. I'm just here to write whatever I write. I don't think that's accurate. I don't think that's right. Just my opinion. But I take very seriously the responsibility I have as someone whose work reaches millions of people, and I'm very grateful that it does. But I don't. I never take that for granted. And so that's what I do and what I do. And again, so many of the people who went before me, whether it's Ray Bradbury or any of these people, Harlan Ellison, they're people who've inspired me, and they took the task very seriously, and they took it as a responsibility and created wonderful work. Rod Serling, for God's sake, he felt very strongly, but he had hope as well. You have to have hope. You can't say the future is going to be shitty and there's nothing we can do about it. That's totally irresponsible and cowardly. So that's my 2 cents on that. So now I guess it's me, wonderful me. Yay! So and by the way, this is the book, The Best of Lee Brackett. She was one of Ray's mentors, and it's a really good book. It collects some of her work, and she writes an afterword. And her husband, Edmund Hamilton, who was also a well-known science fiction writer of that era, writes the introduction. So it's really well worth the money. And so what's going on? We're doing Space Command. We're getting tons of visual effects shots in to finish the second hour. Just cooking along on that. We're working on getting ready to shoot more of the 4th hour, not including the 2-hour pandemic episode, of course. Sweet Haven, we're in communication with George Takei. We're in communication with Francois Chow, who plays the villain on The Expanse and has been in Space Command previously. We're creating 6 new shows for the Showrunners Network, including, Sweet Haven, Elaine's series Harbor, Fugitive Space, Magic Time, on and on. Space Command is one of the 6 as well. And just continuing to, and I'm writing the new book, Greenlighting Yourself, and that's coming along fine. And, there's lots of very funny stories to tell and interesting stories that I haven't written about before. And also I've been invited to write a short story for an anthology called Space 1975. And so I'm writing a short story called The Grizzled Space Jockey that's about my character in Space Command and the character that I play a cameo in several places in Space Command. And they've also asked me to write the introduction about science fiction in the 70s. And so that should be pretty fun to write, because one thing that's interesting that I realized was that although Star Trek was made from 1966 to 69, it really wasn't as highly watched until it got into syndication. And that was in the 70s. So that's really when it took off like a rocket. And they started having Star Trek conventions and all of that stuff. So even though it's a show of the 60s, it really gained its greatest popularity starting in the 70s. So fun stuff. So yeah, so mainly Elaine and I are just having a great time and living our life and having a wonderful experience with life.
Walking terriers.
Walking terriers, yeah, and no complaints. We're doing okay, and spacesuits. Lots to shoot in the very near future. So I think that's about it for now. So we'll be here next Thursday.
Well, thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys. It's always great to see everybody at the table and Mr. Sci-Fi. And if you need anything, let us know, and we'll continue the adventure. So thanks, guys. Yay! 3 cheers. See you next time. Have a good week, guys. Stay safe. Stay safe, everyone.
Bye.
Great. And bye, Mr. Sci-Fi fans. Talk soon. Bye.